empty town. We're searching for the lost and found, but you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare. Just stare 'cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over. Keep you warm by the roaring sea. You meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. Yeah. I prayed for you and kept you near in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm
7-4.
you made it so, and now I'm chasing nightmares. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe the home was just you and me. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Show me what you got. Oh,
Is that everything you got?
last turn.
Catch me if you can.
That was great.
That was a good game.
Unlock true experience with GTOmega.
Unleash the racer in you and feel the thrill of racing all out on the open road.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the GTOmega Challenger Cup. I'm Yousuf Bin-Suhayl, and I am joined by David Christie for our 5th round of the championship, an 8-round championship, and we're heading to Germany, to the Nürburgring. David, I'm really excited for this one. You've commentated a couple of races already so far this season. This is my first time here, so I want you to tell me and to tell any of our viewers who are tuning in for the first time what they can expect tonight.
Well, they can expect the fact that we brought the big guns in by bringing you in tonight, Yousuf. Welcome aboard, man. So good to be working with you again. What a championship it's been so far. BS Plus competition really laying the groundwork at an early stage, being chased closely by the likes of Yas Heat and Jardier Community. Just a few rounds left to go. Tonight being the Nurburgring. This is such an important night for the likes of BS Plus competition. Anyone in that top 3, basically, they need to score big points to make sure that they're still in with a shout, especially 2nd and 3rd place. But yeah, what a championship it's been so far. Very clean for the most part, although we know what it could be like at Nürburgring.
And now that the first half of the season is done, we are entering what one might like to call crunch time of the season. If you do start to make mistakes, especially if you're not BS Plus competition and you are 2nd or lower in the championship, that's where these mistakes can really start to have consequences, and it can start to feel like if you make those mistakes, you are really throwing that championship away. If we do take a quick look over to the championship standings, it is BS Plus competition.
Have been. Now, if they were both to completely collapse in a monumental way over the tail end of the season, yeah, there's definitely a chance for some of the other teams to come in there. But such has been the dominant fashion, it really has been thoroughly impressive. And it all comes down to the fact that Angus Fender and Ryan Barneveld at BS Plus competition, they have done immaculately well.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic pairing so far, but we have seen, and I'd give lots of examples of different series where this is a case, but I'll be honest with you, David, I can't remember all of the instances where you have 2 drivers, 2 teams battling for a championship, they have a coming together, and then all of a sudden the 3rd driver is the one who picks up a championship. The one that always comes to my mind first is Sebastian Vettel, when he picked up his win after everyone thought it was Mark Webber and Fernando Alonso battling for the F1 title.
Well, look, weirdly, if that was to happen, that would be the story of Jardier in general. Like, how many times I've been watching his stream, and he's like 3rd place in one of the races. I remember it actually happening a couple of weeks ago as well. He was in a race, he was 3rd place, or 4th place actually, and all 3 of the cars up in front went off, and he just sort of scooted by, big grin on his face, as is Jardier tradition, and away he goes. But obviously, Jardier not out there tonight. Max Voigtner and Krzysztof Moskowski are who we've got on the sheet for them just now. But yeah, well, it would be fitting if that was what's to happen. Whether it does happen is going to be debatable. But one thing is for sure, with Mount Panorama coming up next time by, yeah, tonight is going to be very exciting indeed.
And let's take a chill pill for a second. Let's clear things up, because we are halfway through the season. We're not in the final couple of rounds just yet. So, and I'm not going to say this is going to happen, but I feel like we're not at the point in the season where we will really start to see the likes of BS Plus and Yassi really throwing everything at the works. Maybe we'll still get a bit of consistency. We'll still get more reserved racing, let's say.
Oh yeah, it's definitely not over by any stretch of the imagination. It's still very much within grabs. The problem is that the how can I put this? The better that BS Plus perform, the more of a stick they put on their back. The more pressure they're putting on themselves to get themselves up there. Because we've seen that with Yas Heat. Yas Heat are able to go toe to toe with them. And the other thing is, you look at every single one of those drivers in that top 10 in terms of the teams, Yousuf, and you're looking at, the names of these. It's just like a who's who of ACC Sim Racing. That, like we said, we've got George Boothby and Luke Whitehead in second place. Favourites to win any sort of race or any championship. Felix Dapers and Telly Lorenzen, Ed Haskell, Jimmy Lynn. Drivers of that calibre. It's a very, very thin margin to be on the top of.
And one thing that I do want to look, and something that I always find quite interesting to see once you do get towards the latter part of a championship, you mentioned the pressure that might be starting to mount on BS Plus competition. I want to look at Yassi. I want to look at the likes of George Boothby and Luke Whitehead to see how they're driving, because sometimes you'll see coming into the later parts of the season when a team or drivers realize that they have to start winning. At the start of the season, if you don't win, you can kind of say, that's fine. I'm going to sit back for a bit. I'm just going to make sure I keep putting in good races, and then maybe the season will come to me. Eventually, you get to a point in a championship where you have to start winning, and that's where you can start to see drivers overly pushing themselves and starting to make mistakes. So I wonder if we'll start to see any of those mistakes from George Boothby and Luke Whitehead.
I'd love to agree. Unfortunately, having seen these drivers, almost week in, week out on multiple different championships, it unfortunately just doesn't happen. They're absolute robots. The consistency that they all have. The only thing that it kind of throws into the mix is the turn one lottery that we usually have. Although again, in this championship, they've all been remarkably well behaved, which actually brings up another point. The driving standards have been really good in this championship, and yet it's the same drivers that we see in other championships, and I start thinking to myself, Yousuf, why can't they behave like this in all the others? What's the difference here? I just noticed on Twitch as well, Crope asking me specifically, am I doing any voiceover for Mike Fernie from Drive Tribe? He listens to the broadcast and he just can't tell the difference. No, I have not watched Drive Tribe in many years actually, although it's only been around for about 3, so yeah, no is the answer. And it's the generic Scottish voice, where we try and clean up our language and try and remove any colloquialisms or slang. I can switch it off towards the end of the broadcast, just get a couple of Jaeger bombs and we'll be good to go.
You can always tell when David Christie really gets excited over a race because a thick Scottish accent will then make its way out. And I tried to impersonate it right now, but I would do a terrible job of it. So hopefully the racing will get absolutely incredible, and maybe we can hear some of that true Scottish grit making its way through. You talked about clean racing so far, David, and here at the Nürburgring, I'm glad you bring that up, because you mentioned turn 1, you mentioned lap 1, one of the heaviest braking zones into turn 1 of any circuit that we have on the calendar. The only other one that really comes to my mind is maybe the likes of Spa, but you've got less of a run into T1. Also, I think you start heading down into Eau Rouge. The other one being Monza. But the difference between Monza and here at the Nürburgring is you have a much wider entry into turn 1 at the Nürburgring, and you can run side by side, maybe even 3 abreast into turn 1.
You absolutely can. It's all about that cutback, though. That is the most important part for it. So when you're going through turn 1 or Halkaken, that right-hander, when it comes back onto itself and goes into the Mercedes arena, that is the really difficult part, because when you're going downhill and you're onto the brakes, that road, as you said, rightly said, it's enough for 3-4 wide, and I've got no doubt that we will see that. But it very quickly narrows as it's running back up the hill towards the left-hander. Very quickly narrows back down. In fact, if we stay on this board, on this view rather, with Jonathan Riley from Volante, we can actually see exactly. In fact, of course he is. Of course he's going to pull to the right, just when we needed him to actually pull off. But yeah, you see there. So George Boothby just making his way around a little bit further on. He's actually down into the Ford curves. The Dunlop curve just now. That is how narrow the track normally is. So it goes from maybe enough to get 3-4 cars wide to this in the space of like 50 metres. Cars are going to have real problems. And you will see either they have to back out or they're going to cause contact with other cars, Yousuf.
The Nürburgring is also one of my favourite circuits to drive on. We were discussing a little bit before about some of your sim racing antics, and where does the Nürburgring rank for you? Not as a track to battle at, but just as a track to drive at by yourself and enjoy some laps.
It's all right. It's not massively on like high up my list. Just probably because it's almost like a poison chalice, isn't it? Because it's right next door to arguably the or part of the most famous racetrack, arguably in the world in terms of the Nordschleife. That is where my heart lies personally, and the temptation to turn left up at Advanbogen or at the NGK chicane is unbelievably harsh. But it's a track, yes, it leads to some great racing. I struggle with it, with the flow, but I like it much more than the tracks of like Paul Ricard. Thank God that's not on the calendar. Barcelona as well. I do think it is a good track. It's just one as a driver I don't enjoy personally.
Well, free practice has drawn to a close, so the final drivers who are on their laps will complete their laps, will then head to qualifying, followed by the race. A 15-minute qualifying session now underway. Following that qualifying session, the drivers will be gridded up. We'll have our rolling start into a 1.5 hour long race. So it's not a short race. You wouldn't call it a sprint race, and there's plenty of time for even the likes of strategy to come into play.
Well, that's exactly it, and I think we can take quite a lot from the free practice session there. You saw quite a few of the Mercedes getting into the top 5, so yet again, I think it's going to be a Mercedes BMW standoff right now. We did see George Boothby, I believe, and again, it was a couple of minutes since I actually did check on the times there, but George Boothby getting the pole position in free practice. Or at least the fastest time in free practice there. I'm noticing also Mikhail Statsenko there, who was in one of the cars there that we just saw a second ago. There we go, Mikhail Statsenko for the Yaz Heat's community car. In fact, Jardy is with us. Jaroslav Hondik's shown up in the time screen, so obviously our entry list is a little bit out of date there. But Statsenko, I'm loving the little Solitaire on the side there.
Sorry. For Statsenko, yes, he driver in that 39 car as he makes his way up the hill through, I believe it's the Schumacher S.
Yeah, it certainly is. No, I was just saying on the side of the GTOmega skin on that car there. I'm loving the little Solitaires. That makes my day as a proud Scottish person.
You know, making me think back to the old the Roast My Rides that I once did back when I looked at different cars competing in a series and made some vocal comments about them. However, we have our first lap coming in, which is from Valentin Barrière for the Jardier community team, the team that is currently sitting third in the championship.
Yeah, that 116 Porsche just coming across the line. Of course, these first laps underway, and this is what we were talking about then. You were saying about how wide that is into turn 1, and then again it just narrows down so very, very quickly here after the arena section. Already you're down into, say, maybe 3 wide, and then at this point you're definitely down into to 2 wide at the very, very most. You just don't want to push the car too much, but a great chance to have a look around the rest of the circuit here, down into the Valvoline curve, then this left-hander, and it's all downhill from here into Ford curve. Again, a right-hander where you have to be so patient, Yousuf, on the throttle there, because if you even think about getting on the throttle too early, it's just going to wash out into that left-hand side there. Onto the brakes into the Tunlop hairpin. Again, nice and tight into that apex there. Running straight up through the gears, in through the Schumacher S's, hitting 195 kilometers. This is the real test of nerves going through the Schumacher S's, because it's all about how much pace and how much momentum you can carry through there, through into Michelin corner, and then the Warsteiner curve. Huge bit of oversteer there from Valentin Barrière. That's going to take a good half a second off of that lap there, but he's going to have the first representative time as we go through Advanbogen up to the NGK chicane. Onto the brakes again, nice and early, avoiding those little concrete pillars on the left and the right hand side there. They will pitch your car up and absolutely send you into a dead spin there. Round the Coca-Cola curve, onto the accelerator again, 153.7. That's it. I mean, it's faster than I can do, but don't be surprised to see some big improvements on that.
George Boothby has already jumped ahead of Valentin Barriere, as has Mr. Schill as well. One of the things that I do like about this Nürburgring circuit is you get very different sectors, I want to say, because the first sector from turn 1 all the way, I'd probably say all the way until you get through the forward curve, feels like you've got to be a little bit timid with the car. You can't really throw the car, and you've got to be very patient, just like we're seeing George Boothby holding it so tight through turn 3 as he exits the Mercedes arena. But then you get the second half of the course where you've got the likes of the Schumacher S, even the NGK chicane. It's theoretically a slow chicane, but you really have to fling the car through it.
Yeah, momentum is so much more apparent in that second half of the circuit here. It's so important in the first half, as you said, to be smooth and precise with your steering inputs. And maybe that's where I struggle, as a driver of this track, because I've got a bit of a heavy right foot, and you really have to be so gentle in modulating your inputs, your brake, your throttle, and really working with the car to get it going. Saying that though, I don't go on Assetto Corsa Competizione an awful lot lately. I've been into Automobilista 2 quite a lot, but since that 1.8 update for ACC, it's just been an absolute joy to drive all of the cars in here, and certainly from commentating as well. The entire field has been neutralized. The entire field now has been brought within 2, 3, 4 tenths of a second for any single car that you drive here. It's been awesome stuff.
George Boothby taking a very wide line into the final corner, indicating that he is setting himself up for another hot lap. He doesn't have much time between himself and Schill, who currently lines up on pole in the BMW. Currently, BMW on pole from McLaren, from Porsche. But right as I say that, Statsenko jumps up into P3 and jumps ahead of Valentin Barriere. So let's ride on board with George Boothby as he makes his way into turn 2. This is what we're talking about, having to be smooth and not being too eager to jump on the throttle. And heading down into turn 3, that's one of the corners which always caught me out when I was learning the circuit, how early you have to turn in for it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that you have to almost second guess what the car's going to do and what the track is going to do as well. Again, down through here onto the left-hander as the car runs down out of that Mercedes arena, down through into the Valvoline curve. Again, you have to be so early on the brakes in the forward curve just to make sure that you get the car balanced, Yousuf, just to make sure that you get the confidence in the car. And again, through here into the Dunlop hairpin, I mean, the way that McLaren, and you can tell he's just ditched it because he's not happy with that lap there. The way that he was able to bring that car in from right into the apex of the corner there was just brilliant. I mean, the car is hooked up so well, and you'll see that the difference between our top 10 drivers is likely to be under 1 second, and you'll see that coming down very quickly indeed. And this is where setup work comes into its own, Yousuf, with the preparation work that these teams do.
Setups being one of the things that I have always incredibly struggled with. I like to pride myself as a driver that if I have equal setup to others, I can perform relatively well, but once everyone can make their own setups, I am absolutely atrocious. Either way, currently the top 4 separated by just 0.05 of a second, half a tenth between your top 4 drivers, and maybe we'll be seeing others jumping into that 500th mark. But as I say that, Statsenko just blows the pole time up apart completely with a 53.282.
Yeah, brilliant stuff there. So Statsenko there, 53.2, 0.2 of a second ahead of Gregor Schills in that BS competition car there. I get the feeling that the Macas might have a strong showing today, given that we've got 3 up in the top 4 right now. The problem is going to be tactics, strategy, and tyres. The BMW is able to hold with them, but I have the feeling that the BMWs chew through their tyres at a faster rate than the McLaren. So I wonder how much that boost that the BMWs are enjoying right now is going to come to the forefront, because, as you said, towards that second half of the track here, Yousuf, those tyres are going to get incredibly warm with how tight and twisty the track goes. So strategy going to play a huge part tonight.
I want to dive into the strategy aspect a little bit more, David, and I want to talk about what we might be seeing in terms of the tyres, because we are talking about a 1.5 hour long race. That is too long for any car to do on a full tank of fuel, so we will be likely seeing, or I think we're definitely going to be seeing a pit stop from every single one of the drivers. But my question to you is, are the drivers going to double stint their tyres, or do you think they will put on a new set of tyres, even if that means extending their pit stop time by a little bit, just to have some fresher rubber on the car?
Truthfully, I've got absolutely no idea, Yousuf. I've tried to second guess these drivers and these teams many times before, and every single time I've been absolutely wrong. I think that I think you're going to want to pit as close to halfway as you possibly can and give both drivers an equal chance at having some good laps, and then a little bit of tyre conservation, a little bit of tyre management as well. We know how quickly the tyres can go off once they're overdriven. We also know with that 1.8 update, Yousuf, that it's so important to have a gentle outlap, a gentle warm-up of the tyres. If you start going out and giving it the big E has from the very outset, then yeah, it's not going to go well. Your tyres are going to be degraded. I usually see it about sort of five laps or so can be the worst case that you lose out on that.
Well, 4.5 minutes remaining in qualifying, an easy outlap. Maybe so. Does the same then apply when we're talking about the race start? Is it important to be a little bit easy at the race start so that your tyres are in a better operating window for the next few minutes, or do you still have to give it everything because of how chaotic an opening lap may be?
It's a good point. You have to play it by ear. So if you're outside of the top 10, then your best bet is just nice and smooth. If you're in the top 5, doesn't matter, just go for it, because we know how important it is to get that track position at such an early stage. You can always adapt your strategy to cope with that, and if you're going to be in with a really good shout of getting a top 5 place, just go hell for leather. You just take all the pace that you've got, take the chances that you can get, make sure you get that track position and adjust your strategy accordingly. It's very easy to back the cars up, and the best way you can do it is actually if you're in a tight group fight, if you get to the front of that group and hold up the other cars, let them fight among themselves, and then you get a little bit of breathing space and you can look after your tyres and just be a little bit more gentle, and that looks after them, and you get a couple more laps out of them basically.
Just over 3 minutes remaining in qualifying, and it is Schill on pole, currently provisional pole I should say, a 53.192, just under a tenth of a second ahead of Statsenko in P2, as we are keeping an eye on Klaus Niering as he makes his way through the Warsteiner curve towards Advenbogen and into the final sector of a lap. Currently sitting in P10, needs to find 0.3 of a second if he wants to jump ahead of Yuri Avalik for Riser Esports in P9.
Yeah, just seeing Gregor Schill there, that pole time, that is inspired to see that car right up the top there as Klaus Niering, now looks very close to getting into somebody else's lap time there. That was very, very close indeed, but comes across the line to start yet another lap there. Here is Mikhail Statsenko just coming through the first half of the circuit down to the Dunlop hairpin just now. Again, getting that car tucked in nice and early. And again, what you see is that a lot of the cars, if they see on their delta, that they're on their little dashboard that they're actually going to be behind the lap time that they're doing, they'll just ditch out completely. But this is now the point of no return. You have to keep going because you're not going to have enough time to do your outlap and get round for another lap as well. So Statsenko has at least another lap in the bag here that he can attempt on this. But Schill with his 153.192, that is a very, very fast time indeed. I do wonder if we're going to get down to the 152s. I think we're a little bit too warm for that to actually happen, but stranger things have happened here.
Well, Statsenko makes his way through the NGK chicane, and while he's got enough time to do another lap, does he have enough fuel? out of the Coca-Cola hairpin and onto the start-finish straight. Will it be an improvement for Statsenko across the line? And sadly, it isn't. He's got one more lap to push. Meanwhile, Gregor Schill is making his way down the hill towards the Dunlop chicane. But is this lap going to be an improvement? Can he make it into the 52s? That might be too much of an ask. He runs a bit wide, but you can sometimes get away with that, David.
Yeah, you can sometimes. I think he did lose a little bit of time there, but got the cut back and got straight away on the power. What concerned me was the little squiggle of impatience trying to get the foot down onto the throttle there. But just coming through the final couple of corners here, this is coming up then through the Michelin curve and then the Warsteiner curve. It's so important to get the run out of here. This is where you make up all of your time here, and again, I don't think he has. He looks like he's having a little look to the right hand side. Of course, you might as well complete the lap anyway and get it through, but through into the NGK chicane. Again, a huge clatter of the curb on that left hand side, and the reason I was saying you don't want to hit that is not because, you know, it's not that it's going to break the car, it's just going to break your wrist, as the the significant amount of these drivers are using the very expensive direct drive wheels, which can create incredible amounts of torque, and you know, going over what is essentially a concrete block, a sharp square of concrete. It doesn't feel too good when it's going over it on the direct drive wheels. But this is it now. This is where we have to turn our attention to, because Mikhail Statsenko then through the chicane for the final time, down into the final corner, into the Coca-Cola curve. What can Statsenko do? It really all rests on this Yas Heat Community car comes across the line, and he's not able to take pole position. Last time there, 153.350. I mean, that still would have been enough, believe it or not, for second place.
A good lap from Statsenko, but not enough to improve. Gregor Schill is still on a lap. He crossed the line just in time. We've got a few other drivers completing their laps. Mikhail coming through the final corner. He's actually improved, so he's jumped ahead of Valentin Barriere and up into P5 by just a couple of hundredths of a second.
What a lap that is, though. So Gregor Schill can be very, very happy with that one. He's going to come through the final couple of corners very, very shortly. Schill then taking pole position. What it looks like, it's unlikely, I think, that... in fact, no, we're not going to see any changes. Nikolai getting himself up into sixth position there, but Schill taking pole position from Mikhail Statsenko, Boothby and Barrier on row 2. They are the ones that I'm looking at. I'm just trying to see if there's any real surprises outside of that top 5. Felix Diepers for the 99, I thought would have been up a little bit further there. But yeah, there we go. Nürburgring qualifying session is in the bag.
Well, congratulations for Gregor Schill to pick up pole. Valentin Barriere at the end, able to improve and jump up into P4. And we were talking about how much the top 10 would be separated by. Well, the top 10 separated by practically exactly a second, David. So pretty much exactly what we expected.
And that's the scary bit, is the fact that as somebody that takes part in sim racing for enjoyment's sake, rather than actually being particularly fast at it, I look at this and it just makes me shudder, because you see guys like this come into a public server and you're just like, right, okay, I'm going to go and make a coffee and I'm going to leave it for a couple of hours now. The pace, the level of consistency and the level of speed that they've got is absolutely absurd. And it's... The thing as well is that what worries me is the fact that it's not just one lap pace, Yousuf. You think, oh well, they're just really good at qualifying. No, they're not. This is like the race pace that they do all through the way there. But we have to turn our attention now to that run down to turn 1. We've got 3 huge names going into that first corner. Angus Fender at the front there, of course, no stranger to real life experience out there for I believe it's Century Motorsport in the British GT Championship in real life. Jaroslav Honzig. Again, these names could change. This is what's on the timing board just now. And I can never remember which way about it is, whether it's the bottom right, that's the previous session, driver, and the timing screen is right, or the timing tower is right, or the other way about in 01s, because you can see there Gregor Schill still shown in the bottom right there, but shown as Angus Fender in the top left here. I would keep an eye on Christopher Streppen in the 991 in that Bentley. They have got a very, very good chance at coming through as well. That Bentley's done a fairly decent job through the season, just not really had anything to show for it so far. Felix Deepers, as I mentioned, in the 99 BMW. But yeah, it's difficult to look past the front five.
Something I did just realize, we talked about how Yaroslav Honzik, more commonly known as Jardier, is racing. The funny thing is, Jardier is racing with a Yasheat community car rather than with a Jardier community car. So that's a fun one. And also, the other fun bit is the fact that the Yasheat community car has out-qualified the Yasheat GWTR car, and it is the Yasheat GWTR car that is currently second in the championship. So you'd have to assume that Yaroslav Honzik won't be making it too difficult for George Boothby to get through on the opening couple of laps.
It's fine. It's fine. He'll be there's no inter-team rivalry. Honest, we'll soon see. As I said, like the thing is that I have got such a soft spot for Jardier. I've made this very, very blatantly obvious. He's such a wonderful character for the sim racing community. Whenever you see him on his streams, always smiling, always, you know, such a really happy chappy, as we'd say up here in Scotland. But he's blooming fast. That's the bit that you have to keep in mind as well.
That's probably the secret to his happiness. I reckon if everyone was as fast as Jardier, the world would be a much happier place.
No, it wouldn't. I'm listen, as a resident grump and pessimist and downright negative person here, we'll be having
that's
none
just
of
being
that.
a Scotsman, all right?
Yousuf, we'll be having none of that negativity, positivity rather, even on this stream here. And how dare you cast assertions over my my nationality, even if it is absolutely spot on.
Anyway. I do apologise, David.
Well, most of the production team are Scottish as well, so if Yousuf's mic magically mutes itself in the next hour and a half.
The production just find, you know, one of those programs that changes your voice and it just magically adds a Scottish accent onto my voice. A really thick accent as well.
We call that Chris Buxton. Every time he jumps into Discord, and as soon as I come in, he puts on his best Scottish accent, which, to be fair, he's entitled to, because he did live in Scotland for a number of years as well, in one of the places that I was at in Dundee as well. But anyway, that is completely by the by. We've got a race that we're about to get underway here. We've got about 20 seconds that we can fill.
Who's your money on, David?
Oh, I see what you've done there. You've just gone, right, just throw me under the bus.
You can throw me under the bus at the end of this as well if you want.
It's all good, it's all good. Truthfully, I don't know, but I'm not one to sit on the fence. So, Schill, if somebody gets past Schill in the first couple of corners, then I don't know. But if Schill manages to stay at the lead of the pack after lap 1, then the BS+ competition card will win it, guaranteed.
Well, I've got to be a contrarian, David, so I'm going to say George Boothby is going to win this race, unless George Boothby gets past Gregor Schill on the opening lap, then Gregor Schill's going to win it.
Ooh, okay, so it's basically first and second place then. That's who our money's on, which means that Jardier is going to win.
That would explain it. I mean, we started off this broadcast talking about how Jardier would win from P3. As I was just seeing in the background, cars going through each other, and I forgot that ACC has a ghosting feature. But we are making our way through the NGK chicane, the Coca-Cola curve up ahead, and after that, we are blazing, and we will be racing at the Nürburgring. Gregor Schill lining up on pole position ahead of Statsenko. When does he pull the trigger? Can George Boothby find a way through on his Yasheat teammate? Keep an eye on Statsenko. He's on the outside. Gregor Schill in the BMW on the inside. When do we go green? When do we start racing? And the green flag is out, and we are underway. It's a pretty good start from Statsenko, but Gregor Schill in that BMW just seems to have a little bit more drive. Will be able to cover the inside, but look at Valentin Barriere. He's on the inside of George Boothby, heading down into turn 1. Boothby will try to hold out the outsiders. There's a big incident, someone going onto the grass and collecting a few cars as we head into turn 2. Gregor Schill still leads from Statsenko.
Yeah, that's a great start. That's exactly what Schill wanted right now. He's in the lead of that pack there. You can see all hell kicking off though behind there. You've got Statsenko in second place there. Then you've got Boothby, Barrier, Riley, Nikolai all duking it out for position here. But these two are away right now, as you see side by side. That's the Porsche of Barrier trying to sneak it up the inside there. Still side by side. Neither of these drivers want to let anything go right now. And that's going to be back up the inside for George Boothby. That pushes the Porsche wide. That leaves him vulnerable then to Riley in that number 14 McLaren. Can't think anything of it. Guys, 3 wide into the Dunlop curve there. That's not going to happen. Thankfully, they sort themselves out here. But wow, what a start. And it looks like Gregor Schill, I mean, he is really having to work for this right now, as just ahead of Mikhail Statsenko.
But with this battling that we saw from the guys down behind, it has meant that Gregor Schill and Mikhail Statsenko have been able to pull a bit of a lead. 1.2 seconds from Statsenko down to George Boothby. But now that George Boothby has got clear of Barriere, he is able to get his head down and start pushing. We also saw, I believe it was Jonathan Riley, trying to make a move on Valentin Barriere. Barriere covered the inside, heading down into the Dunlop hairpin, and it actually allowed Nikolai to find a way through.
Yeah, it was a great effort, and the thing is that's exactly what it takes to be able to take those opportunities, Yousuf, and to make hay while the proverbial sun shines. But our first lap in the books, and Gregor Schill is in the lead, so you know what that means. Then it definitely is going to be Jardier winning this race at that rate. But I mean, the problem is that he stretches out. But look at George Boothby. Actually, that's not even funny, because it might actually happen. Because George Boothby in that McLaren, that gap had opened up quite a lot, and has now actually come right back in. So I thought that it was going to be Schill and Statsenko kind of streaking away there. But look at Boothby here.
As we do have a replay of the first lap incident that we will be taking a look at momentarily, but George Boothby absolutely flying in the race. We talked about setups earlier as well, David. Maybe George Boothby just has a phenomenal race setup, but couldn't quite get it right in qualifying, as we will be getting that replay up momentarily for everyone.
It's a bit busted that I was busy chatting away to our production team on Discord there, so apologies for distracting them, folks. We'll let them get back to it, but back with the race then. And as you can see, George Boothby right on the tail end of Statsenko, and Statsenko starting to drop back a little bit from Gregor Schill right now. This is where setup strategy is going to come into play here. But Boothby, this is going to be like a red rag to a bull right now. He sees the tail end of that number 39 McLaren. He wants that position there. But again, apart from that lap 1 incident that we're away to look at just now here, it's been a fairly easy race. Oh my goodness me, that is actually so lucky well, no, okay. I was going to say it's lucky that it wasn't actually a lot worse than it was, but yeah, that's the most predictable accident. Yeah, that's the most predictable accident I think you'll see tonight.
Yeah, it was just a shame. I think whoever was in that white Ferrari, thinking that they had space, they got a wheel onto the grass and maybe it just unsettled the car, and after that they were just bowling balls heading down into the Hungary hairpin of turn 1.
I thought you were going to say hungry hippos there for some reason.
The hungry hippos. That is a throwback to an ancient game, I almost want to say, that I have never played myself.
It's because you're too young, Yousuf. You're like 17 or something.
Oh, thank you, David. I'm actually 23.
You're still way too young. Yeah, I remember. I actually had that. But anyway, I'll try not to distract this conversation, because we could go down a whole rabbit hole of games that I used to have when I was younger. And I think that's letting the cat out the bag with how old I am.
Well, George Boothby is letting the cat out of the bag with his pace, because he's just set the fast lap of the race. 9/10 behind Statsenko. In fairness to Statsenko, he's been putting in some good laps as Robin Hulleman tried to hold the inside, round the outside, looks Dieppers, but he ends up going onto the gravel, and sadly, what could have been the overtake of the race doesn't quite work out.
That was optimistic, I think, is the word that I would use for that one from Felix Dieppers. There was never any chance of that move actually being pulled off, but you know, fair play. It's you've got to speculate to accumulate, and that's exactly what he did, and unfortunately get shown to the beach at a very early stage. Thankfully, it didn't actually cost him too much in terms of time, and just looked a little bit awkward on the stream there. But oh, and that's your race. That is race leader. That's Gregor Schill making a very uncharacteristic mistake there out the NGK chicane, and Statsenko's gone, thank you very much. That's handed it to him on a silver platter. And I'm genuinely shocked. That is not a driver, Yousuf, that you see making that type of a mistake.
Not even 10 minutes into this race either, David, and Gregor Schill already making that mistake. I want to say that's one of the easier places on the circuit to make that mistake. We talked about it in qualifying, the fact that you really have to fling the car through the NGK chicane to carry as much momentum as possible, but it is so easy to run wide. It's just surprising that it's Gregor Schill who's made that mistake, and now he's got George Boothby right on his rear end. And one thing I can be certain of is that Statsenko will not be letting that BMW through easily whatsoever.
I don't think he's going to get through. Remember, this is what I was saying right at the start of the race. If Schill gets overtaken, he's going to find it very, very hard to do. He's in trouble now as well. He's got George Boothby, who is on amazing, amazing pace right now. The other thing as well is we need to check what actually happened. We'll see if we can try and get a replay. But he's pushing really, really hard. He's going to burn up those tyres very quickly, and he's going to find himself going backwards at a rate of knots. I've got a sneaking suspicion that he's hit the curb. Remember I was saying during the onboards, there's the two little concrete pillars on the left and the right. I bet he's hit the one on the right-hand side. Yep, there you go. Unsettles the car, bounces over and onto the grass. I've done it many times myself, but wow.
It's not something that you would be expecting Gregor Schill to be making, and on that lap, Statsenko set a new fastest lap of the race. So Statsenko and Boothby have been practically trading fastest laps over the opening few laps of this race. We're coming to the end of the fourth lap, and it is Statsenko who leads 8/10 to Gregor Schill, and then a further 6/10 down to George Boothby in third, and then we've got a 1.3 second gap to Valentin Barriere in P4.
What a start to this race, though. Again, we never saw this coming whatsoever, and this blows the championship wide open with the amount of points that are on offer here. You see Jonathan Riley in that number 14 Volante Racing machine. I believe they're currently fourth in the championship right now, trying to get onto the back of Valentin Barriere in that 116 machine. But again, just the three of them here, because you've also got Victor Nikolai in that 31 BMW just behind them as well, kind of dropping back from the likes of Gregor Schill and Boothby. And in fact, look at Statsenko now. That's a second gap that he's got over those two in second and third place there. So gonna have to watch out, because second and third are getting rapidly caught here from fourth, fifth and sixth.
Volante Racing currently 5th and 6th in the championship. Is West Competition Racing, who are sitting in 4th, and that is Mr. Nikolai currently sitting in P6 in that 31 BMW. Actually, the surprising thing with that team is the fact that they didn't pick up any points in their opening race of the season, so they've been making a good comeback since, as we're seeing Valentin Barriere coming under pressure from Jonathan Riley and Nikolai in this battle for P4. So with just over, 80 minutes left to go in the race here, this looks like it could be the moment for that McLaren. Jonathan Riley tries to sneak up the inside. That is, I'd love to say that's optimistic, but yeah, it's borderline reckless trying to make a move on that one there. It's such a difficult place to try and make the move, and the problem is now he's lost that momentum. And look at Nikolai trying to catch up to the back of them there. It's going to be all on the exit here from the corner, but I think he's just too far back at this point. I mean, we've seen how impatient he's getting. You know, if you're going to try and make a move up that right hander at Van Bogen,
Yeah, that's not going to end well for you. It's just a case of you have to knuckle down, keep behind the car in front, and just wait for your opportunity, which is exactly what George Boothby is doing right now. That BMW, I am really concerned. And if you remember as well, I had concerns about how quickly it was going to eat up through the tyres and its general race pace. I think we're seeing that now here. Don't be surprised to see Boothby getting his way past the BMW, but I think it's going to be another 10 or so laps, because Schill is one of those drivers that even with all those disadvantages, he's exactly the guy that you want to have in your car at that point.
Well, two different battles occurring at the same time. George Boothby biding his time to find a way through on Gregor Schill. Jonathan Riley on the rear end of Valentin Barriere's Porsche, the 116. But where can Jonathan Riley find a way through? He had a little poke through Advan Bogan last time round, maybe just letting Valentin Barriere know that he is under pressure, maybe trying to force a mistake from the Porsche driver. This time round, just sitting in behind. Maybe he can be a bit more patient and try to wait and strike down into turn 1.
And that's exactly what half the battle is these mind games on the drivers in front. You want to really let them do the work for you. As long as you can stick to their tail, they start looking in their mirrors, and once they start looking in their mirrors more than actually in front, that's when it's game over. This is what we're seeing from Gregor Schill out in front. I'm really, really not liking how much he's having to overdrive that machine just to try and hold on to the position. Look at how much time it's losing to Statsenko in front, but also look at how much time that it's giving to George Boothby just behind him. He has the little look there, but again, no realistic chance of making any sort of a move there. You can see picture in picture as well. That's the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th that we've been speaking about with Valentin Barriere, Victor Nicolai, who moves up into that 5th position there ahead of Jonathan Riley.
And that is Valentin Barriere up into, or he's still holding on to P4 as Nicolai and Riley battle between themselves. And I know that Barriere took a defensive line down into the final hairpin, and that meant that Nicolai and Riley were practically side by side into the final corner. And I believe those two have switched position. Jonathan Riley dropping down into No, he was already in P6, pardon me.
Yeah, so he's actually taken that position. So Nicolai's the one that's dropped back down after the timing split there. So the BMW back behind then, and that releases the McLaren onto the back of Valentin Barriere. This is what we have to keep our eye on now. The McLaren doing so well at this track here. We're seeing the likes of Noah Sully, Vasquez, Rodriguez in the 199 and Hulaman in the 125. They're down there in 9th and 10th position as well. 5 McLarens in the top 10. That really says everything you need to know about what kind of favour there is for this track tonight.
I mean, we could say by the same logic, we've got 4 McLarens outside of the top 10 as well, though.
Well, we could, but that wouldn't make such an entertaining narrative, would it?
Yeah, actually.
You know what I mean? I'm trying to frame a story here.
I mean, I just want to point out, no Bentleys or Aston Martins in the top 10. Terrible bit of machinery.
I've got a lot of love for the Bentley. You know, it's such a wonderful machine. I mean, the fact that it's about the size of a yacht is absolutely irrelevant. It's still very competitive. I mean, it comes with its own butler. It's a wonderful GT3 machine.
Honestly, David, you would have loved to hear myself and Ewan O'Leary in the commentary booth talking about ACC and just massacring the Boatley on every broadcast we touch. But for now, it is Nyring who is sitting P11 in that 991 Bentley. He's actually only half a second off from Hulleman, and there we can see Klaus and Nyring on the back of the white. Sorry, it is Nyring in the white Bentley, with the Deepers right behind him.
Yeah, obviously that BMW's wanting to try and get past, and the Bentley is not having any of it. I liked the Bentley when I started ACC because it was one of the easier cars to get to grips with. It was very, very stable. It was a little bit slower, but it was stable. In fact, actually, no, tell a lie, it was the BMW. It was I'm pretty sure it was the M6 that was in the game, or was popular in the game right at the start. And oh, that's late on the brakes for the Bentley. That's going to be a mistake. That's almost going to let Felix Deepers through down at the hairpin there. Unbelievably, the Bentley gets the drive out of that, and look at the pace that that thing has got in a straight line. It just can't turn to save itself. He's right on the back of Hulaman here. Hulaman having to take extra precaution into the corners, whereas that Bentley is just throwing it in for P2 Sim Sport left, right, and centre here. So again, it's a case of, it looks like it's lost a lot of time there, but because it gets a straighter line out of the hairpin, it can actually just rocket itself straight up. I mean, look at this right on the back right now.
And this is where it's important to be right on the back of the car that you are battling with. Try to get a good exit out of this corner, the final corner, the Coca-Cola hairpin, and get a run on to Hulaman's McLaren. We've seen that Bentley being fast in a straight line over the course of the previous lap, and now is Klaus Neiring's opportunity to have a look down into turn 1, but the Bentley just too far behind. We'll have a little look. The McLaren goes somewhat defensive as Klaus Neiring looks to get a nice late apex, get on the power, maybe slide up the inside of the McLaren into turn 2, but Neiring's just a bit too far back.
Yeah, the Mac is done. Well, at least that one is. The pace just isn't on point. You'd see the Bentley. It's going to be a matter of time before that Bentley gets past, and likely Felix Diepers as well there. But in the meantime, that the McLaren just backing everybody up by driving as defensively as it possibly can. It will get to a point where Neiring gets a little bit frustrated and probably tries to send it, but yeah, I'm quite enjoying this because there's an air of inevitability. It's, call it a little bit of instinct, call it a little bit of premonition, but I've just seen this happen so many times. You can tell from the characteristics and the way that the driver starts driving the car. There we go.
Oh,
called it out.
Contact.
5 corners before. The Bentley was just getting fed up with the McLaren. It's braking so early compared to the Bentley. Unfortunately, though, you can't do that. You can't just sort of manhandle. I mean, maybe you want to blame the butler for that one, but I don't think that's going to hold up with race control.
And it's Felix Diepers who gets both of them as well. So he's laughing to himself, I'm sure. And it's one thing to remember, and maybe something to point out to some of our viewers who may not be as well tuned with GT racing. The fact that you've got the likes of Porsches, BMWs, McLarens, right, and the list goes on. Each of these cars have their own strengths and weaknesses, and one of the differences are the braking powers that the different cars have, and that there are different braking points that you have to be aware of when racing against another car from a different manufacturer.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, so by its very nature, as we see Felix Diepers here having to defend from Klaus Neiring here, I'll come back to that point in just a second, because I think Neiring's going to try and drive around the outside of him at turn 1, going to try and get the cut back there. Diepers not doing a good enough job to defend that line, and is going to have the outside for the next corner here. Fair play to him holding on the outside though, but surely Klaus Neiring though is going to have the inside for it. Still very, very close here. Actually, Diepers will have the inside line for this corner, but there we go. The Bentley will be able to just roar away here as the superior power of the Bentley and the inside line will have it. To be fair though, I mean, Diepers isn't
letting this one go.
He's not having it, is he? Okay, this changes things, because this is starting to get a little bit of frustration for Diepers as well. He's going to likely try and send it down into the hairpin here, but the Bentley, yeah, much later on the brakes, can pull the car in, get it pulled round. That's done. That is not going to happen again from Felix Diepers, unfortunately. So Neiring will. The reason I say that is you saw when Neiring made that mistake and was brought into the clutches of the BMW, and then you saw how quickly he was able just to tear away that Bentley. I do have a suspicion will be able to just rocket itself up the road. But back to your point, which I've almost completely, in fact, I have completely forgotten there, Yousuf. So we're not going back to that one, unfortunately.
I was going to say, the battle that we just saw is any proof, if anyone needed more proof of why real racing is better than NASCAR racing, because in real racing, you get right corners, and then you get left corners, so you can be on the inside, and then you're on to the outside, whereas NASCAR, you're just always on the inside or always on the outside.
I see you've had a bold marketing strategy there, Yousuf. Just decided to torch our entire US fan base right there. That's brave. I remember the point you were trying to make. You were on about weight, and you were on about different GT3
braking
cars.
powers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the thing with GT3 racing is that it's a standard. It's a class of racing that is supposed to be as even as it possibly can. The only way it can do that with different cars is by trying to keep a baseline in terms of a weight range and in terms of a power range. Now, not all power is equal and not all weight is equal as well, because it depends on the weight balance of the car, where that weight is in regards to the car. You've got a thing called BOP, which is balance of performance, which is applied by the running classes. So the competition organisers will decide on how to handicap cars that are too powerful for the class to bring them in line with everyone else. And a lot of that can have an impact on things like straight line speed, acceleration, and all the cars are very, very different, which is great because it means that different cars have different strengths at different tracks. And so when we say that, oh, this track is favouring the McLaren, it's not because the McLaren is a better car, it's because this track suits the weaknesses and the benefits of this one. Whereas maybe say, international tracks like Laguna Seca might favour a completely different car for different reasons as well. So it's what makes GT3 one of the most popular championships, popular classes in the entire world.
Well, I tell you what, Jonathan Riley is going to be fancying this P4 spot very much so. But can the McLaren get enough of a run on the start-finish straight to send one down the inside of the Porsche? Valentin Barrier then, 4P4 goes down the inside, a little bit late on the move, and I think maybe Barrier might have been in his right to turn across, but Barrier now has the inside. Jonathan Riley on the outside, side by side through turn 2. Barrier will squeeze Riley out wide and will hold the inside down into turn 3 and hold on to P4.
Yeah, that was a great move there. Just a shame it didn't turn out for him, but the pace that McLaren's got from Riley is absolutely unreal. Oh, that's a bit naughty there from Barrier. Just goes over one side, then goes over into the other. It's you can tell though, when a driver starts having to do that, Yousuf, they're in trouble. They are really in trouble. If you have to start driving defensively, then it makes it so much easier for the car behind you just to stick to a line and just chase you down and get that pace there. Gregor Schill taking the gap down to 0.8 of a second to Mikhail Statsenko there. And that gap is, it's been fairly even at 1 second for the past sort of 10-15 minutes going on. Ike Guy in our Twitch chat senses, he's got the old spidey senses tingling right now because he senses a punt with frustration from Jonathan Riley. But I don't think that's going to happen, because I don't think it's going to have to happen. The Porsche, I think, is going to make enough problems for itself here. Again, the Porsche more than the McLaren gets affected by this chicane here that we're about to see. A decent line through, but the McLaren had to back off on that straight, and that's what's given the Porsche the run.
Well, Jonathan Riley had a go at Valentin Barrier last time round down into turn 1. This time round, he's a little bit further behind, so I doubt he's going to be able to have a move. And I think we could tell from how Valentin Barrier was driving, as you mentioned, that weaving, which I think was probably going over the line, going past the grey area and into the black, down into the Valvoline curve, was maybe one out of frustration due to the contact that these two had one lap ago.
Say it how you see it there, Yousuf. I have to agree with you. I think that's absolutely spot on. The problem with it is that contact with these two won't help either of them out. In fact, the only person that will help is Victor Nikolai down there in 6th position, because he's a little bit off of this battle, but just enough to be within a shout of anything that goes wrong with these two. The McLaren needs to figure out where it's stronger than Barrier. It needs to figure out where it's got the strengths, it's got the upper hand over that car in front. At the moment, it's not seeming to do that. It needs to just take a step back, as it were, and regroup, because what happens is, you'll notice here as it comes up through the Schumacher S's, it's on the run up the hill after the exit from Advanbogen. It gets the pace, but it can't do anything, because by the time they get to the NGK chicane, it basically has to let off the gas and has to back off. So you'll see here, as it comes through the right-hander at Warsteiner curve, then through at Van Bogen. Now, by this point, we're already in the toe, and you'll watch the McLaren get up to the back end of the Porsche and then have to brake sooner.
Yeah, and we see how close it gets to the Porsche. And as you mentioned, you know, when you're behind someone, you can't risk braking at your same point because there's a Constantina effect. It's Jonathan Riley ends up running wide. We go past the Nordschleifer entry, and Jonathan Riley drops to, what is that, nearly a second down on Valentin Barrier. So now he's going to get it. He's going to have to get his head down and try to close down that gap once again.
Yeah, well, we saw it again. He did exactly what Gregor Schill did about 10 laps ago, just bounced that car over the curb on the right-hand side, that concrete block. That is what unsettles the car, sends it off into the left-hand side and sends him over onto the grass. But you're right, just over an hour here left to go. Statsenko still in the lead over this race from Schill and Boothby, Barry in 4th. You've got Jonathan Riley in 5th, Nikolai in 6th, Bruder in 7th, Valak in 8th. You've got Noah Sully, Vasquez Rodriguez in 9th, Klaus Neiring in 10th. The issue is now strategy. When do these cars start to come in? I think it's going to be around about 50 minutes to go to 45 minutes to go.
I'm really glad you brought up this point of strategy because I wanted to say that the pit window is theoretically open. And I don't think anyone is going to pit now, but if someone was to pit and put in a full tank of fuel, they could then make it to the end of the race.
Yeah, they very much could do, but it's that whole thing of like, you want to try and stay on these tyres as long as you possibly can. If, I mean, here's a big if as well. If you've been exceptionally kind to your tyres, you might get away with just doing a fuel-only stop as long as your driver is okay with taking those worn tyres. That would save you a heap of time in the pit lane.
Do you want to double stint your tyres? Don't you want to double stint your tyres? The other thing
though,
well,
just on that note though, Yousuf, is the fact you're not technically double stinting your tyres because it's an hour and a half race, so it's not like you've done the full 1 hour on them. If you get to that point though, and we've seen this in endurance races, many drivers do actually double stint their tyres. The problem is this is such a demanding circuit. I wonder whether or not that's actually a thing. And hang on a minute. This is Gregor Schill. He's now right on the back of Statsenko. Is Statsenko fuel saving, do we think?
Well, look at George Boothby. He's 2.6 seconds behind these two, so George Boothby isn't able to keep up with these two. So I just think Gregor Schill has put on his go faster underwear and is closing in onto the back of Statsenko. The question is, as we've seen so far at the Nürburgring, you can catch up to the guy ahead, but it's not that easy to find a way through as Klaus Neiring picks up a 5-second time penalty, so that'll be for a track limit somewhere.
Yeah, that's very likely exactly what that is, or it could be for that contact from earlier on with the Bentley there. So we'll keep our eye on that one. But my goodness me, this is starting to get very, very interesting indeed here. And just having a look here. Yes, that is a... No, it's... I'm just sorry. I was just checking the race control. Oh, right, never mind, because we've got a battle for the lead. While I was checking the race control notes there, Gregor Schill just comes out of absolutely nowhere and tries to RKO our race leader, Mikhail Statsenko. It's not going to happen, though. Schill has to think better of it. But I mean, my goodness me, where did that come from?
Who tries the outside of the Michelin curve? That is absolutely ludicrous from Gregor Schill, and I'd actually say it's a touch too aggressive because you've got a nice, healthy gap to George Boothby. If you battle like this with Mikhail Statsenko, Boothby's going to be closing in, and we've already talked about the effect that tyre wear can have. You need to be kind to your tyres. You want to be as efficient as possible and utilize your tyre wear as effectively as possible when making these overtakes.
You absolutely do, and the problem with that is that you have to be as fast as you can while being as consistent as you can, and usually it's that whole triangle, isn't it? It's like you've got three sides of a triangle. You've got consistent, safe, and fast, and you can pick two because you don't get all three. And at the moment, I think Mikhail Statsenko is choosing consistent and safe. and Gregor Schill, well, we saw earlier on with that mistake. I'm just so impressed that Gregor has been able to stick with our race leader to that point, because, like I said, with Boothby dropping back, that could actually suggest that maybe it's the McLarens that have gone through their tyres a little bit quicker.
Potentially so, maybe. There's so many different things that could be happening. I mean, for all we know, George Boothby might be running with a little bit more fuel. Another thing to consider, we talked about the different manufacturers and the fact that that can affect the likes of braking distance, but we also have to remember different fuel consumption rates. Different cars will be in the pits for different lengths of time to put in different amounts of fuel, and that could mean that maybe the McLarens are in for a shorter amount of time and are able to jump ahead of the BMW.
So we've hit 60 minutes left to go here, and yeah, this is spiced up massively in the past few laps now with Statsenko and Schill. And again, championship-wise, we cannot emphasize just how big this is for the championship overall. Statsenko being cool, calm, collected, and Gregor Schill in that BS+ competition BMW being the usual hounding nuisance that BMW is. And I mean, this is one of the classic races that we've had for this season. Two of the best sim racing drivers here in Assetto Corsa Competizione duking it out for the championship. And again, big points on the line here. It's just way too close to call. I've got no idea how this is going to go.
Well, so far, BS+ competition, 1 pole so far this season, 2 race wins. The Yas Heat community car, 1 pole, 1 race win. And I'm sure Statsenko would be eager to double that total of race wins with a win over Gregor Schill. They're not really in the championship hunt right now. It is the Yas Heat GTWR car, which is currently being piloted by George Boothby down in P3. The Yas Heat community car actually currently sitting down in P10 in the championship, about 50 points behind the R&E Team Red car, who sit in 9th.
Still watching this battle going on though, and Klaus Neiring, I think I have to agree with Twitch chat. I think that is a very fair penalty. It wasn't it wasn't a massive deal. Also, just noticing that Riley has got past Barry for that 4th place, and quite a way up the road now. 1.1 seconds is the gap. In fact, I think this is actually the closest battle that we've got on track here.
Yeah, and to go back to your previous point, David, 3 McLarens in the top 4. Oh no! Statsenko! He's made the same mistake that Gregor Schill made at the start of the race, and it has unleashed Gregor Schill into the lead here at Nürburgring, and now Gregor Schill can get his head down and try to gap Statsenko.
Wow. Huge moment there for Statsenko. I'd love to say it was unforced, but Schill was right on the tail end. And this is swings and roundabouts to see what happened here. I believe we've got a replay of that overtake. But again, that was a huge mistake there from Statsenko. Let's have a look at the replay then. And well, that was like taking candy from a baby, really. It was almost like he'd gifted that position.
What was the drive that the McLaren got over the Porsche coming out of the Warsteiner curve? That was incredible, and that was how Jonathan Riley got past Valentin Barrier.
Yeah, that was very strange actually. It looked more like Barrier lifting off than anything else there. So we'll keep an eye on how that develops here. But now it's back on to Gregor Schill for all that pressure. Can he eke out a gap here now? If Schill is able to eke out a gap, we know that it's a case of that the BMW is just managing itself here, but the McLaren does have an awful lot of pace here. And how many times are we going to see that curbing catch these drivers out here?
Okay, and I think we've got a replay exactly of how Statsenko lost his lead. For anyone tuning in, this is the GTOmega Challenger Cup, round 5 at Nürburgring. And this was your race leader, Statsenko, through the NGK chicane. As you mentioned before, David, you touch that concrete and it can just spit you out.
It really does, and it's quite violent actually. If you look on board during the replay, what you actually see is the car kind of gets launched. You don't really see it from the helicopter view, but it's very profound when you're on the TV angles or you're actually on board the car. You see the thing just pitch up into the air, and the driver has to work really hard just to make sure that they can keep it onto the track there. So, I mean, fair play to Statsenko. It's not great losing the lead of the race, but ultimately, I mean, it's not actually cost them all that much. It could have been a lot worse. That car could have been pitched in towards a barrier, and realistically, I mean, he's still on the back of Schill here. That it's now just returning the favour. If anything, actually, Statsenko might be able to save a tiny little bit of fuel here as we go on to another replay. And I've got a feeling, yep, what a top production team we've got here. They've given us exactly what we asked for. Look at that, bang! You see the car pitching up into the air, and just straight off into the grass there. And the reason for that is quite literally the front wheels that are steering the car, Yousuf, they aren't touching the ground.
Yeah, and well, if your wheels aren't on the ground, you've got no drive, you've got no grip, so you're just going to go in a straight line. However, Mikhail Statsenko is closing back in onto Gregor Schill, and there is a reason for this, because there is, it's almost a psychological thing, isn't it, David? When you're the car behind, you just find it that little bit easier to find extra pace, and yes, some of it comes from slipstream, but a lot of it also just comes from almost having a target in front of you to motivate you, and just it somehow gives you extra time. It's a kind of uncanny.
Well, it is, because every single time that you're behind the car in front, you're going to break that tiny little bit later than them. So you see here, right, the BMW starts slowing down, the McLaren takes maybe 2, 3, 4 car lengths before kind of easing things out. That's where you make the time up here. The problem with that for the McLaren as well is the fact that the more you do that, the more you're leaving yourself to risk at the car in front. Now, we saw that with the likes of Klaus Neuring and the BMW.
It was Hulleman in the 125.
Oh, sorry, yeah, the McLaren as well. So again, just wanted to get past him. He was slipstreaming him. He was faster than the car in front. And the problem is when you are faster, you have to be able to make that to your advantage. Otherwise, you're going to do that and end up costing yourself a lot of time.
Well, I hope Luke Whitehead is getting ready to jump in for George Boothby, because we're getting closer to that pit window phase, and George Boothby currently 2.8 seconds behind your leading two. And if Yasheed GWTR want to be essentially bringing down the gap to the BS Plus competition car in this championship, they're going to need to, chip away at that gap, as Norden picks up a 5-second time penalty that was due to contact with Haskell in the 72 BMW earlier on in the race.
So 52 minutes left to go. I'm still not sure when we're going to start seeing these pit stops here. That's going to be the big thing, because you're going to get a lot of time, as we see, 5-second penalty down to Norden there. I don't know, honestly. Out of all the races that I've caught with this championship, this one feels the closest, if that makes sense. It's just utterly unpredictable.
What we do know is that it is at most right now a 3-horse race, probably a 2, a Statsenko. Well, that's completely different to the previous time he went off in the NGK chicane, because usually it's hitting the concrete on the exit that sends him out spinning. This time I think he hit the concrete on the entry into the corner.
Well, you know, he's just want to keep it even, obviously. Just want to make sure that both of the curbs get as much attention as they can there. Lose about 0.7 of a second because of that, as we cut back to Valentin Barry on the chase down for Jonathan Riley there late on the brakes. And in fact, excuse me, that's Valentin Barry in front, and that's Victor Nikolai, because of course Riley's away up the road now, so Nikolai in the BMW chasing him down here. So I think with pit stops, with watching how the pace has gone here and how the pace is falling off, I'd be more inclined to leave the pit stops until as late as you possibly can. So till about half an hour to go, change, get new tyres on, and just absolutely go for it, Yousuf.
Of course, though, if you're in a situation right now where you had fuel, you know, you've got a certain amount of fuel on board, you'd want to run that fuel all the way to the minimum or as far as possible so that your car is as light as possible and you can essentially maximize your pace with a low fuel load.
You could. It's just whether or not that would actually work in terms of the pit strategy. That's the key question that we've got to have here. But I'm looking at the lap times from Statsenko. Again, they're still starting to come down. It was about 1.4 seconds to Schill. It's now 1.2 seconds. I've got no doubt it'll be a little bit closer. As we see in the background there, this is watching Jonathan Riley, but you can see there Valentin Barrier still trying to hold on to that position from Victor Nikolai. Nikolai getting a really good run on the run up the hill here towards the NGK chicane. And again, these two are just going to have to think a little bit better of it. It's going to be on the run down to the first corner, and a little bit of a lull in the race, if we're honest. It's calmed down. It feels like it's taking a breath right now.
Well, Felix Deepers isn't taking a breath. He's only 2/10 behind Noah Sully Vasquez Rodriguez. That's probably going to be the only time I say Noah's full name in this broadcast, at least until the race comes to a close. Ooh, that was the McLaren of Jonathan Riley almost coming into contact with one of the back markers.
Yeah, thankfully didn't though. That's the good thing to say. And again, the back markers usually fairly respectful. I hate using the term back markers actually, because it's just lapped cars, is it? It's just cars that have not had. If I was on the track, then absolutely it is back markers. But if a lot of these guys have just not had the races going their way just now, and Shell now starting to really push the pressure on Statsenko. I am looking at those lap times. I'm wondering now if because look at Nikolai as well. It seems like the McLarens and the Porsches now starting to lose out with that early gains that they had.
You know, the BMWs clearly just a little bit kinder to their tyres. There's a Nikolai pressuring onto Valentin Barrier in this battle for P5. They make their way into the Michelin curve that follows into the Warsteiner curve, which leads on to the back straight through Advenbogen and into the NGK chicane. But this time around, it looks like Nikolai a bit too far back, so he's going to have to wait for the start-finish straight and then look to make a move down into the opening hairpin of the lap.
Well, whether or not that actually happens is the other thing, because this BMW looking very, very impatient. In fact, there goes the Porsche, and there we go into the pits then. Comes the BMW. That is a smart choice for Victor Nikolai. He knows he's faster than that Porsche in front, but he's being held up, so he decides to come into pit lane and get his pit stop done, get a driver change done. And realistically, we're now at that point now where we should start seeing everybody decide to come in.
And with that, our first pit stop of the race for Victor Nikolai. I think the first pit stop was actually from Haskell, but either way, our first pit stop from the top 10. Nikolai Bruden following in, and we'll have to keep an eye on where Nikolai comes out, if he comes out in traffic, and then where Valentin Barrier comes out once he makes his pit stop, because it was Barrier who was just in front of Nikolai prior to his pit stop.
Yeah, it's again, it's the lull that we were talking about with the race here is because all of the gaps have now kind of spread out. We're now looking at least at 1.5 seconds for all of the cars across all of the battles here, and that will change once all the pit stops are done here. But it gives us a chance to reflect on what we've seen so far over the first half of the race, because believe it or not, that is us at the halfway point already. It's gone by so very, very quickly indeed. But Gregor Schill still in the lead of this race from Statsenko, Boothby in third, and Riley up into fourth position. Now, here's going to be the question, Yousuf. What can the cars do on their new change of boots? I think McLaren's, if they do change tyres, are going to be absolutely blazing fast.
And it's what we saw at the start of the race. McLaren's just having that slight edge over the BMWs, which is kind of weird considering that it was Gregor Schill who took pole. But maybe just when it's in a race environment, then the McLarens are able just to be a little bit quicker towards the start of their stint. as Lukasz Szydło makes his way out for Volante Racing in P13. Taking over for, I was going to say Jonathan Riley, but no, it's not for Jonathan Riley. He is still in P4.
Oh, contact between Norden and Slinar there. That was rather awkward, to say the very, very least there. Wait, was that Slinar, or was that the BMW there of Deepers, or Apostle? I'm not too sure there, because that didn't look like what that was for position there. So that was a heck of a hit there from that that machine of Norden there. Well, yeah, okay. I've got a feeling that was the 31 BMW of Apostle as he came out of the pits. It just got absolutely clattered by that car there. Well, that's not the best, is it? Goodness me.
Is that our... No, that is not our race leader in the pits.
That was Nyring that we saw there.
Okay, well, David Slanar on the outside as... down the inside goes high and holds on to his position for now.
Yeah, so this is the awkward part of the race for us as commentators, because you know, you're watching everything happen as Max Norden decides to jump into the pits here. But the problem is that there's two races going on right now. You've got those that have pitted, and you've got those that haven't quite pitted as of right now. So this is George Boothby who decides to pit straight away there, and just have a look. Who was that was right behind?
Was that Jonathan Riley? Yeah,
I think it was. If that was the case, where the hell has he come from?
Wait,
in fact,
no, that's
Riley's
Jonathan
in the pits,
Riley.
but no, the pair of them are in the pits. That's Boothby and Riley.
That is a 2-3 second gap between the pair of
That
them.
was a 2-3 second gap. So what the hell happened there?
I don't think that was Riley. I think that was a lap car that has a very similar McLaren livery to Jonathan Riley. It might have been the other Volante Racing car, actually. Because there are two Volante Racing cars. So you've got the 14 of Jonathan Riley, and then we also have the 199 of Klaus Nyring. Sorry, that's the 991. Where's the 199?
Seedorf down in 13th. But the thing is that Seedorf's not in the pits.
No, but Seedor didn't follow. So that was definitely Seedor behind. And then just behind Seedor would have been Jonathan Riley.
I will give you that. That does seem plausible. We'll go with that one as Jaroslav Honzig comes out of the pits in the number 39 machine then for Yas Heat Community. 43 minutes left to go. This is where it's going to start getting very, very interesting indeed here. George Boothby is going to hand or take over that car in the 75. So where do we go from here then, Yousuf? What do we think we're going to see in this last half of the race then?
So, hear me out on this one, David. I have a feeling that we're going to be seeing Gregor Schill and Valek pitting. And then I think we're going to be having a battle between, well, it won't be Gregor Schill because it'll be Angus Fender at the wheel of the BMW and Jaroslav Honzig battling it out for the lead of the race. And speaking of Gregor Schill, he will jump into the pits. So he's jumped into the pits 1 lap after Mikhail Statsenko, and he was about 1.5 seconds ahead of Statsenko prior to the pit stop.
Yeah, let's see how that goes then, because here comes who's that now? That is Jiří Valek in the Porsche now. Jiří still has to pit, so I would imagine Jiří will be into the pits this time by then. That means that, yep, there we go. So Jaroslav Honzig is just coming up through into Michelin just now, so that'll be through into Warsteiner. Yeah, I think Schill should be okay in the lead of this race. We'll keep our eyes open, but it depends on what they decide to do with that strategy there. But that could be a very comfortable lead for them.
We'll see how close it is. Through the NGK chicane goes Jaroslav Honzig. Gregor Schill will be being released from the pit lane momentarily. But how good has this outlap been? I can see the jacks being dropped, and Gregor Schill has been released. Well, not Gregor Schill, because it is now Angus Fender who makes his way out of the pit lane as Jaroslav Honzig bombs it down at the start-finish straight, and he can see the BMW up in front of him, but the gap has definitely extended.
Yeah, it really, really has, and that was a great stop there to see Angus Fender and Gregor Schill working their magic there. I think that's probably going to be about, 2.5 seconds between the two of them just now, so 40 minutes left to go here. With the early pace that BMW had and the pace that Angus Fender has, I think that it should be looking very, very good for them. In fact, I think that gap is going to eke out even more. Might even be actually about 3.5 seconds to them, because now Luke Whitehead, I think, is going to get onto the back of Honza, put pressure on that, and might actually get that second place.
Yeah, there have been a few changes in terms of timings. One thing that I was keeping my eye out on was the 116, which is now Wojcina, who was only just ahead of the 31 BMW prior to the pit stop. However, we did see that incident happening down into the Ford curve, and as a result, well, now Apostle is, well, not a couple of seconds behind Wojcina.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So that gap now to 3.5 seconds. So that's about 1.6 seconds that they've pulled out on that that pit stop there. And realistically, I just don't see this McLaren now getting back up to the tail end of Fender. I think Fender, as long as he stays clear and out of any issues, I think he's going to be quite good for this remainder of the race, for this win, because Whitehead now going to apply all the pressure that he can onto the back of Jaroslav Honzig. Meanwhile, I mean, championship-wise, it's not going to be an easy job for Luke Whitehead, but I think he's certainly going to give it everything that he can to try and get that second place there. Mostly because I think that gap is only going to go up to that BMW in front.
Yeah. So far for Yassi Community, no points at Monza, no points at Kyalami, third in Donington, and then they won in Spa, and now they're looking to get a second, and that would have mean from 3 races they would have occupied every single one of the podium spots. And you just have to think, what could have happened if they were racing from the start of the championship? The other Yassi team, they've had a win, they've had a 4th, they've had a 3rd, they've had a 2nd, and now they're looking to pick up their 2nd, 3rd of the championship.
And you wouldn't argue against them getting it, but BS Plus Competition, they're showing exactly why they're in the lead of this championship right now. The pairing of Angus Fender and Gregor Schill, the amount of work that they put into Assetto Corsa Competizione, it's been a fantastic showing here, and it's turned the tables, hasn't it? Because you've now got Sebastian Apostle up there into 8th position, and the 99 of Yoursen into 10th position as well. So where we saw 5 McLarens in the top 10 earlier on, we've now got 3 McLarens, 3 BMWs and 2 Porsches. So towards the end of this race, maybe as the track's cooled off, Yousuf, it's kind of evened itself out.
And there is still a fair bit of track evolution that can happen, and maybe we will still see it happen as Luke Whitehead is absolutely bombing it, closing in onto Jaroslav Honzik, and we'll see how much of a fight Jaroslav Honzik puts up against his Yassi teammate. I personally don't think we're going to see too much battling between them, and maybe we'll even see Jaroslav Honzik lifting out of this one, because the current championship battle is between the GWTR car of Whitehead and the BS Plus competition car that currently leads the way, being piloted by Angus Fender. Yeah,
and with 36 minutes left to go, it's everything's on the table right now. That's the issue with it. Is the fact that, you know, we're coming down to the business end of the race here. But again, realistically, it's a difficult one to watch, because obviously we love watching the action, we love seeing all the drama and the chaos and stuff like that, but with the gaps being about maybe 4, 5, 6 seconds apart, it's unlikely you're now going to see any big jumps on the table. What you will see still is mistakes. You'll see drivers getting it wrong and costing themselves positions, but given that this battle here between Honzig and Whitehead is the closest one that we've got on track, with the exception of Hai and Zito down in 13th and 14th position.
They actually just swapped positions.
There you go then.
Yeah, Matt Hyde just having found a way through on Guido Zito. Not quite sure where. I would assume that one was down into turn 1.
Yeah, I think you could be right there. I'm just having a look as well. It's the 99 of Yourson into pit lane. He's already pitted. I wonder, has that car come into some sort of contact or had a problem? In fact, Yurson's still in the pits. It's shown as Felix Deepers. Oh, I wonder if it's been a disconnect, because it would make sense if that's why Felix Deepers is back in the car. But we'll have a look. Certainly, as it's almost going to be side by side. And did Honzig just give that position to Whitehead?
That would not surprise me. It's what we were discussing may happen between the two of them, both of them being Yas Heat drivers, and Yaroslav Honzig allowing Luke Whitehead through. Now Luke Whitehead has some clear air in front of him, and he can try to close in onto Angus Fender, but we're talking about over a 4-second gap from P1 to P2, and yes, we've got over half an hour left in this race, but that is still a lot of time. And well, you're talking about nearly a 2-minute lap time, so 34 minutes, about 20 laps remaining to close in 4 seconds. So I could do the maths, but I'm a little bit too lazy. I think you need to be gaining about 0.2 per lap every lap onto Angus Fender. And, well, Angus Fender is a very, very quick driver, so Luke Whitehead is going to have to do absolutely everything if he wants to be able to close in onto Angus Fender. We'll see whether Yaroslav Honzig can actually keep up with Luke Whitehead now that he has allowed his teammate through.
Yeah, it certainly is. And again, it's like 3D chess. It's like 4D chess watching this entire match unfolds in front of our very eyes, and these drivers are basically the pawns on the chessboard here. You made a comment about NASCAR and just turning left earlier on as, oh my goodness me, Luke Whitehead. Oh, that's a bit scary. Well, I mean, guys, it is a corner, it is a racetrack, and the back markers still have to do their laps there. That's a little optimistic from Honzig there. Thankfully, no issue with that though. Like I was saying though, is the fact that, you know, watching the way that the strategy unfolds from these different drivers here, these different teams, this will have been decided on hours/days in advance from them. They know how they're going to be approaching the circuit. They know how they're going to be attacking this track and the different drivers. So it's just going to be a case of you know, kind of almost like a metronome, just keeping to your pace, keeping to your own ability right there. And you know, we're hearing in the Twitch chat about how Jardy had said that he was just going to let Luke Whitehead go, and sometimes that's the best way to do it. Just follow in the car in front and let them drag you along.
And you can see in the corner of your screen Angus Fender coming out of the Dunlop curve when Luke Whitehead and Yaroslav Honzig are braking down into it. 4.5 seconds between the pair of them. And I tried to do some quick maths earlier, David, of how quickly Luke Whitehead would have to close into Angus Fender if he wanted a chance of winning this. And I believe I came up with something like 0.2 per lap. So currently he's not doing that.
So he's not going to win then.
Yeah, so
That's what we're saying.
So Voitner is going to win somehow. We don't know how, but magic.
I can get behind that. I can see that happening. Porsche Power. It is Germany after all. We can see that happening. But then, you know, realistically, Fender out there and the other German power machine. Yeah, it's although you've got an Audi then of Michelle. It's there you go. A BMW, Porsche, Audi 1, 2, 3. How about that?
Banging. Don't forget the Bentley in P4, right? It's got the bonus butler surface. I'm sure that could help it along.
and the onboard butler.
Oh, if you, I don't know why I've got in my head now, if you're racing and you had a butler on board with you, you know.
just
what
just
would you
serving
get
you
the
some,
butler
some
to do?
chilled cola.
Would you just be like in the middle of a straight, yo, butler dude, can you hold my steering wheel so I can get my hand under my helmet and scratch my nose or something?
To which you know the reply would be, yes, certainly, sir.
Yes, of course, sir. Consider it done.
Very good.
Would it be an English butler? Actually, David, so I know, you know, traditionally people talk about butlers being very posh and all of that. What would a Scottish butler be like?
Really, are we actually doing this?
I mean, we can go back to the racing, but...
All right, pal, that's a cracking job, mate. Well done, pal.
Well done. Have you ever played an old game called Toka Race Driver 3?
An old game. Oh my god. An
It's
old
Toka
game.
Race Driver 3
How is
came
it an
out in,
old
like,
game? I remember the
2004
original
or something.
Tokas, okay? My Toka from my era was on PS1, right? Toka Race Driver
Okay.
3 was from like, what, 2000, 2003 or something like that?
Yeah, so I hate to break this to you, David, but that was like nearly 20 years ago. That counts
You
as
think
being
I don't
old.
know this? Dude, I was like 20 when that came out.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
I was not out when it came out.
You were not. Yousuf, where do we go with this conversation?
So Toka Race Driver 3, you know the Scottish engineer? I'm just imagining
Right, I see
a
where you're
butler
going
with
with
that
this.
voice.
Yeah. What was his name again?
I
He was
I
a
don't
legend, by the way.
know. I always remember where he's like, oh, you can't keep going off the track. It's only going to slow you down. And I'm just like, just shut up. You're annoying me. I'm trying to like drive. And then he like says some other stuff.
Clip that right now. That is the best. I mean, Lemmy would be proud of that accent. That was amazing. That
You got to stay on the track. The infield's only going to slow you down. I still remember, like, when you do the initial race on Toka Race Driver 3 as well, Wojtek Dvorak almost getting Apostle very close and personal to his rear end. But I still remember the first race you do on Toka Race Driver 3, you get given DTMs and you got to do a race, and you can win it, but the cutscene at the end will always be the same, which will be the Scottish guy showing you a video of your DTM car just spinning around in circles, and he'd be like, this is you. You can't drive like that. That is terrible. And I'm just sitting there thinking, I hate you. I just hate you with every core of my being.
I have no idea what I can possibly say to this. Yousuf, you've just made my month. This is why I love working with you, man. It's just, wow, that is. Right,
Well,
there's a
right
race
now,
still going on. Right,
Voitila is
by
having...
side.
Yeah, it's correct, because he's on the outside of Voitila, who goes later on the brakes down into the NGK chicane. He goes a little bit wide, and that's going to allow Voitila now down the inside into the Coca-Cola hairpin. Oh, it's going to be tight between the pair of them, but who's going to get the better exit? Coming out of the final corner, they're side by side on the start-finish straight.
Oh, here we go then. Still side by side. I think that McLaren is going to have a little bit of the boost going onto the inside line, but that Porsche is still going to try and hold on. It's going to try and get the cut back there. The McLaren goes deep into turn one. It's going to get the cut back then. The Porsche has the run round, but it's into the Mercedes arena. Surely that is done and dusted for the McLaren. Yousuf, I've got a request for you. Can you say that she's turned the wains against us?
Can I say what?
She's turned the wains against us.
Turned the wains against us?
Yeah, just say that. Just say she's turned the wains against us.
I'm very skeptical of this right now, David. And
it's in order. Twitch chat is telling you.
Oh, okay. Am I supposed to do it in a Scottish accent? Or
Yes.
Okay.
In Scottish accent.
She's turned the wains against us.
Brilliant. Nailed it. Well done, mate. That's it.
I have no idea what that means. I don't know what that's a reference to, but I hope you enjoyed it.
You're going to have to Google it. There's a Scottish comedian called Limmy. And yeah.
Okay.
She's turned the wains against us. It's
what?
Yeah.
What does the wains
No,
refer
wains,
to?
kids, children. So.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
There you go. Right.
the
Okay.
most-
Now we've
yes.
taken that little interlude. Let's get back to the action here.
Can we
I've got
get
to be
back
honest.
to the P7 battle? Yes, thank you, production. Getting to it before I even asked for it, because that is Wojtek Dvorak defending from Sebastian Apostel in P8. Porsche versus BMW, German versus German.
I'm glad that none of our previous conversation has spilled over into this. But what a fight we've got going on! That BMW doing a cracking little job of trying to get its way up the order here, and I guess that lends credence to the idea that we were thinking about the McLarens maybe past their best. Certainly with the fact that Angus Fender 4.2 seconds ahead of Luke Whitehead. It's a gaggle of McLarens up there, but Max Voigtner trying to get his way in just now, and I think it's the temperature. It's got to be the only thing that's changed here. I mean, we had so many of them doing well in the qualifying, getting themselves up there, but in race pace, the McLarens have just been falling away here.
Yeah, slowly falling down. I think they were saying that there were 5 McLarens in the top 10 beforehand. That number has now dropped down, just 3 in the top 10. And Wojtek Dvorak under pressure from Apostel. Apostel looking for the inside. There's not much space. He goes onto the grass, sends it down the inside, but he's going to run wide. That one was never going to work.
Well, it was optimistic. It was never any chance. As soon as you hit the grass, it's almost like that meme and the music plays in the background of "Hello Darkness, my old friends."
Yeah,
and that's exactly what happened there. So it'll take a couple of laps to get back there, but as if by magic, we cut to the battle for 4th position. Then Caracas getting ahead of, Caracas ahead of Voigtner. We saw that happening a couple of laps ago, with that wonderful move up the inside as they got the slingshot from the NGK chicane. But again, I wonder about that McLaren. It's both the McLaren and the Porsches that are suffering right now, because one other car that we've not really spoken about is Andre Michel in that Audi in the 112, in 6th place just now, but realistically 25 seconds off of Voigtner. That car's not going anywhere right now.
a bit of no man's land. A lonely drive for Mikhail currently. Now, is it just me, David? And I don't want you to get too excited just yet, but has Luke Whitehead started to close down the gap to Angus Fender?
He has a little bit, but that's just one lap. I think that might have been some traffic for... Well, no, it's not traffic for the 89, so it's maybe just saving the tyres or saving the fuel for the 89. The gap has come down. We'll need to see it be a consistent drop for that 89.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, they're looking a wee bit closer on track here, so we'll keep our eyes open, but certainly it looks a little bit closer on the little mini-map. Looks more like they came out. It still looks like back down about 3.5 seconds.
Now, one thing that we have, I want to say assumed, is that the BMWs are better on their tyres. So coming towards the end of the race, I guess we could expect Angus Fender to start to pick up the pace a bit relative to Luke Whitehead. But that gap now, 3.8 seconds, having dropped down by another 10th. Meanwhile, in the picture-in-picture, it is Sebastian Apostel closing back in onto Wojtek Dvorak for P7. Half a second separating the pair of them. We saw Sebastian Apostel going for an ambitious dive into turn 1, using up the grass. Sadly for him, the move did not work out, but he has closed back in to the Czech driver.
Certainly has, and just watching this all unfold, this is just fascinating. I love this little battle here with the BMW and the Porsche here. This is where driver discipline comes into play, because we know the BMW is faster than this Porsche. It might be faster than the Porsche, it might be faster than the current driver of the Porsche. That's all irrelevant if the BMW can't safely make its way past, and it's looking like it's struggling to do that right now, because yet again, Apostel dropping off the back of this this Porsche here, through what you've got to say is an unforced error here. It can get right back onto the back of it, but yeah, it's... Whether or not it can get past is another matter altogether, and they've got a back marker getting into play, and I think that's going to come right at the worst possible time for the BMW. But your question about Luke Whitehead is no. That gap's back up to 4.3.
It was at 4.5 as well at one point. So a bit of a mistake, as that is the luminescent green McLaren jumping on into the pits. I think that is the 23, who isn't even on the timing tower right now. Wait, the 323. Ah, that's what. Dan Stevens in the DMP Racing car.
Yeah, he's into the pits again. I think they've maybe miscalculated on the fuel or the tyres with that one. Maybe they decided to double stint the tyres and realised, no, we can't actually do anything with this. It'd be interesting actually to see if there is anybody who decided not to change their tyres at that pit stop point there, because I'd imagine they'd be going backwards very, very quickly indeed. But back with Sebastian Apostle then, he's still 1.5 seconds behind Dvorak in that number 70 Porsche. The issue with that is, as I said, is that he can catch right back up, but it means nothing if he can't actually get past that car. Meanwhile, that battle with Caracas and then Voitna is still going on. It's still about a second over there, and I wonder if that Porsche is starting to fall back a little as well here, as we start to see the sun setting here at Nürburgring. 7:15 in game time there. A little clip of the curb there on the right hand side for Garantas Caracas.
Tell you what, Voitna is not letting this one go just yet, and now that he has been passed by Caracas, Caracas stretching out a gap, but maybe not by as much as he was closing in. Initially 7/10 between the pair of them. Also still keeping an eye on Wojtek Dvorak and Sebastian Apostle. 1.5 seconds between the pair of them. Apostle losing a lot of time, being caught up behind Stevens through the NGK chicane on the last lap.
Just watching this attack from Voitna, and you're absolutely spot on when you said that about what a great effort it is from Voitna. He had to concede the position to Caracas, but he's not letting it go out of his sight, and this is realistically, this is all you can do, is just keep that pressure on and keep pushing. As what has happened to Sebastian Apostle there, Yousuf? That gap now 5.6 seconds, so Apostle has he's come in some real trouble. We didn't see what happened to him.
No, that's not Apostle. That's Wojtek Dvorak who has dropped down, because remember, Apostle was behind Dvorak.
That's right. Yeah, good shout.
So that is bizarre. Where is Wojtek Dvorak on track right now? So he's coming out of the Mercedes arena. I am going to hazard a guess. I reckon he made a mistake to the NGK chicane and spun. Because he's lost.
That's an
He's lost, what,
educated
15
guess
seconds?
right there, and I would definitely agree with you. I think that's the most likely place where it's going to have happened. So Dvorak then sent to the to the Wolves then. He's behind Christopher Strepp in that 991 Bentley, 5.2 seconds behind. So yeah, that is how it go from hero to zero. Meanwhile, Caracas still being hounded by Max Voitna right now. 18 minutes left to go, so we're under 20 minutes left to go in this race here, Yousuf. And again, while it's calmed down, you know, there's still lots that is going to unfold, as we've got a replay then of what happened to Dvorak then. Let's have a look here. So this is way before the chicane.
Oh, it's a Schumacher-S.
Well, that's unusual. He's just clipped the rear right tyre onto the curb on the inside there and spun him round. That's a bit awkward, isn't it?
But how much time do you reckon that cost him? 10 seconds?
Nah, not even that. Probably about 6 seconds.
But here's the thing. If you take off 6 seconds, that's where Verstappen is. That's still 2 seconds behind Apostle, and Dvorak was 1.5 seconds ahead of Apostle.
Yeah, maybe that. Yeah, but we were seeing that gap come down constantly to Apostle, so it could have been a little bit closer than that. So, I mean, either way, 7 seconds. That's about what he's lost there from that one. But again, a very costly mistake when realistically, it was unforced.
Yeah, and we've seen unforced errors. I mean, so far actually, the unforced errors have come from our top 2 teams, or the top 2 teams at the time being Gregor Schill, who ran wide through the NGK chicane, and then we saw the same thing happening from the 39 car as well, just, what, 20 minutes afterwards.
The great thing about it is that, you know, as somebody that is a very, very slow driver on ACC myself, it's nice when you see the pros
You're
making
not that
mistakes.
slow.
No, I am. I really am, Yousuf. That's the thing. Is like I've you know been in races with these guys, and I'm like 2-3 seconds slower per lap than them.
Yeah,
I
same.
just,
No, I
it's-
think my fastest time here is 55.5.
That's why we're in the comms booth, mate. That's
Yeah, true.
why we're here just talking about them.
I like to say that they've just got better equipment than us. It's the better steering wheel, you know, the direct drive wheel, and all of that. It's definitely not, but it's what I like to tell
I
them.
was going to say if that's what helps you sleep at night, that's I've already come to terms with the fact that. Do you know the thing about that is though is a good friend of mine, John Monroe, who works over at Traction now. I remember he sent me a picture of his setup, and John is a very, very fast sim racer. He's not had a lot of time to do it lately. He's into his real life racing and stuff like that. But when he does turn his hand at it, he's like ridiculously fast. I swear to God, his setup was a desk, a Logitech G27 clamped to it, or maybe it was a G920 or something like that. But it was like clamped to his desk that he was using for studying, and he was able to be so incredibly fast. So, and this brings up a bit of a moot point, doesn't it, about the whole thing about equipment and what equipment do you have. And the thing is that ultimately equipment can help, but it won't completely make you the fastest driver. It will assist you. So like obviously we're doing this stream with GTOmega, and they do a whole range of gaming accessories, and one of the things that they've got, and I've mentioned this on previous streams, I've got one of their rigs. And the fact is that it helps me when I'm driving it. It gives you the immersion factor. When you combine that with the fact that I've got the VR headset as well, it makes me feel like I'm in the race car. And that's what helps when I'm doing, you know, when I've done real life racing as well. It is like, it's exactly the same thing. It is just as close to the real thing as you can possibly get. So all of these accessories there are there to help you improve. They're there to help you, but they're not going to do the job for you. You have to actually. So ultimately, you know, even if you've got a £120 wheel, a budget wheel, like I had the little T150, and I then went up and had the Thrustmaster T300. That was like £400 or £500 for that bit of kit. It didn't instantly make me a better driver just because I bought it. Yes, there was benefits to it. I had improved force feedback, yada yada yada. But it's all of these things are marginal gains, and it's a slippery slope, because you can very quickly end up spending thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds.
So to go on a small tangent, not a massive tangent, what GTOmega sim do you have? Because I think I've got the Pro cockpit.
Well, we were laughing about this. So I've got like one of their old offerings, like from way back in the day. It's still the round tubular, the tubular steel that they were making it out of. So I had one originally. I had one of their, I think it was one of their ART rigs before. And then I thought, right, I'm taking a break from sim racing. I sold the rig, I sold everything, and took a break for about 6 months before you get the inevitable, I really miss this. And then I ended up buying a rig secondhand from a friend up at Dock Hill, who was basically just doing a clear out. It came with like a really old Fanatec wheel, which was amazing at the time as well. And yeah, it's like one of their older offerings, and I'm thoroughly jealous, because you've seen their new like the ART offerings. They look the bee's knees.
Yeah, I really want one of those, because my rig is so I got mine second hand off eBay, and mine now shakes a bit. So you know when you like put a bit of force onto the wheel and you can feel the whole rig starting to shake?
Yeah.
I just want something to make it a bit sturdier.
Well, see,
my brother. So my brother broke my keyboard because he went on the rig and he didn't do what I told him to, which is like, you know how you have the keyboard attachment to hold up the keyboard? With mine, you're not allowed. I literally say you can't have it on because it shakes. he forgot to take it off, and while he was racing, the keyboard shook, fell off, and it broke one of the keys.
Oof. That's not the not the best. I'm just also I was having a quick look at their website, GTOmega.co.uk. So obviously I used to work up at Knockhill, and they had a business relationship with the guys up at Knockhill, and they ended up sending out one of the rigs, to, as a partnership thing, and I think it was with Superlap Scotland. I'm positive it was the RS6 that they did. I'm just looking at it here, and that thing was absolutely rock solid. I mean, we used to trail that thing about. It was moved from like all the exhibitions that we would do, and yeah, that thing was bomb-proof. The amount of abuse that took. So
the
yeah.
RS6 is the chair itself, right?
The RS6, I believe it is the chair, but the art simulator cockpit is the one that it goes on. So it was the art with the RS6.
Okay. Because I've got the RS6 chair, but I think I've got the old Pro. I think it was the Pro cockpit, not the old ART cockpit. Apparently, it also came with a drink holder as well, but I didn't get the drink holder.
So drink holder? Yeah. I didn't know that. That's a bit awesome. Because the thing for me is, obviously, I've got a very different workflow from most people, with the fact that a lot of people use like the monitor stands that they've got. They've got the single monitor stands, they've got the triple monitor stands, but of course, I'm in VR. And it would have been handy at a point for me to have like a little holder for the VR. But now I'm starting to get into my VR games and stuff, like where I'm actually standing about. So I don't need that as much. But again, the amount of accessories that you can get for the different cockpits is absolutely absurd. Definitely the floor mat is a must-have if you don't fancy your carpet getting absolutely crushed.
Yes.
Unfortunately, when you're a big chungus like myself. Do you like what I did there? I'm down with the kids. I know all the memes. But what I didn't realise as well is that obviously people think
Chungus on the ropes.
Chungus on the ropes, yeah. Chungus is wobbling about a bit. But again, a lot of people think that the sim rigs are just for racing, and of course they don't, because they've got the mounts for flight sticks. So the actual rigs would be amazing for your flight sims as well.
Oh yeah, very true.
I got into that a little bit a couple of years ago. I gave it a go for about 3.5 months. It had a nice, super expensive joystick, and then it just got bored a little bit. Anyway, we've got a battle. Apparently there's still a race going on here because Andre Michel now has been caught up. Wait a minute, Sebastian Apostle has come from absolutely nowhere to challenge for this 6th position here.
Maybe he is well and truly an apostle, David, because he is flying. Maybe he's got God's gift as well right now in the form of some true speed as he closes in onto Andre Michel for P6. BMW versus Audi. We've been talking about the German rivalries out on circuit here at the Nürburgring, and who will be able to claim P6. Right now, you'd be hard-pressed to bet against Sebastian Apostle.
Yeah, you really, really would, and it's, I don't know, that BMW's just been so strong, but I'm also seeing the gap come down between Fender and Whitehead. Remember, that gap was 4.6 seconds, it's now 3.2 seconds, but I think that it is just a case of Fender managing the gap, so we'll keep an eye on this little battle here. We'll tell you if there's any changes in the gap between your two leaders right now, but 7.5 minutes left to go here. As we see Sebastian Apostle, he really just is so supremely confident, Yousuf, in that car, isn't he? He's very happy. He knows exactly where to place it and exactly how to place it as well.
Yeah, it's a great drive right now from Sebastian Apostle. I also want to highlight Jaroslav Honzik, because he is now 9 seconds behind Luke Whitehead, and the gap before was about 3 seconds. And Carecas is only 5 seconds behind Honzik. Now, we don't have long left in this race, but if we did, I have a feeling that Carecas would be closing in and maybe even going for a move. In fact, that gap is constantly dropping, so I reckon Honzik has absolutely destroyed his tires, because his pace is just not there right now.
Yeah, it could very, very well be, and that car dropping off like a stone off the edge of that one. But the thing is, I mean, look, he's still 5 seconds ahead of Caracas right now, so we'll see how that one goes. But this battle is so fascinating here with Sebastian Apostle. He is able to keep up to the back of Andre Michel, but that's about it. He's not looking devastatingly faster than that Audi right now. But again, it's all about the patience, whether or not that BMW has the patience to try and make a move. Now, it was in a good position there, but went way too deep into that final corner, and the Audi just goes, yep, see you later.
I think Apostle was looking to try to maybe get the slingshot out of the corner, but as you mentioned, just a bit too late on the brakes. Doesn't get the exit either. It's going to have to wait a bit longer. Now, also, Verstappen within a second of these two, so we're going to have a three-way battle for P6 momentarily, and everything starting to heat up as we are reaching the climax of this race.
Yeah, we certainly are, as Sebastian Apostle making his way down. But again, that gap has stabilised 3.2 seconds for Angus Fender. Now, Yousuf, here's an interesting point. Have a look at that triangle of our race leader on the minimap and have a look at those three cars fighting just up in front of him. Are they going to be an issue in the next 5 minutes, or is he not going to catch up to them? That, I think, is going to be a huge deal here, because I think that is the likes of Slanar and Lynn who are fighting it out. I'm also just seeing here as well. So this is this three-car battle then, as Christoph Verstappen into this battle as well. And I've got to be honest, I didn't even notice Christoph there at all.
Yeah, he's closing in. Also, David, I'm sorry, but this may happen, but I'm probably going to call him Verstappen at some point.
Well,
yeah.
You will now you've said it. You were doing so well up until this point.
It's something I've had in the back of my mind for a while, just how similar that is to Max Verstappen's name. But Verstappen has closed in on the back of Apostle. 4.5 minutes remaining. I tell you what, I actually fancy Verstappen's chances over Apostle's here to take P6.
I think Verstappen's going to take P6. Because I think he's going to take Apostle, and he's going to take Michel as well. 4 minutes left to go. The pace that he's got on that car is absolutely obscene. It's unbelievable, the straight line pace. The problem is that the Audi of Michel is holding up Apostle, which is meaning that the Bentley by default gets held up by that as well.
Yeah, the question is, where did they look for a move? One thing that we have noticed so far today, David, is the fact that Bentley is very good in a straight line. So you're looking towards the NGK chicane, you're looking towards the hairpin of turn 1 that we have just passed as the opportunities for Verstappen to find a way through on either the BMW or the Audi ahead.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly see as 3 minutes and 25 seconds left to go. Verstappen just has to hold on and kind of wait to see what is going to happen here. The problem with this is the fact that the more he's getting held up, the more that he's going to lose the time to that Audi. But realistically, look, I mean, this is for 6th, 7th and 8th position. Yes, you're going to get a nice little bunch of points from this, but it's not worth ruining your race over. So take the chance where you can, but don't make any silly moves. But great to see the headlights are on as the track's starting to get a little bit darker here.
Oh, it almost feels like they're going wide through the first part of the Schumacher S. As down we go into the Michelin curve, leading into the Warsteiner curve, and you can just see that through this middle sector, it feels like Andre Michel just has that slight edge over Sebastian Apostle. And is that going to present an opportunity for Verstappen to find a way through up into P7? There isn't much time left in this race, 2 laps at the absolute most.
Yeah, this is very, very tense stuff there. The gap between your leader and second place, that's gone back up to 4.1 seconds. So I'm going to be very bold and say that is not done and dusted, because I think the 89 is just catching on to the back of those back markers just now. That is indeed Scott, Slanar and Lynn that is on there. And this is starting to get a little bit sketchy now between Andre Michel, Sebastian Apostle and Christoph Verstappen here, as Apostle trying to get the inside line again, start Audi there. It's not happening, and they're all getting bunched up. Oh, a little bit of a nudge there from the BMW on the back of the Audi right now, as we see on board then. And yeah, this is on the rundown then. You can see the Audi just in front. And again, it's a case of waiting with bated breath. And hang on a minute. That gap to your leader is, yeah, it's still 4.2 seconds. So
here he comes.
Yeah, here he goes then. Apostle on the inside then into the hairpin. Tries to get squeezed out. That's really naughty from Andre Michel there. That was really, really naughty. You saw him try to squeeze that car out to the grass. You cannot do that, Yousuf.
You know that Andre Michel really wants this. He's defending as hard as he can, maybe crossing the line. Maybe we'll see contact. Maybe Verstappen will take the pair of them as a result. But there is no doubt right now, Sebastian Apostle quicker than Andre Michel. It almost feels like through some of the slower corners, Andre Michel just seems really slow at corner apex, and that's a really good exit from Verstappen. He's right on the rear end of the BMW as we head into the kink of Advenborgen and up towards the NGK chicane. The Bentley looks for the inside. The BMW will go defensive. Now the BMW looks for the outside into the NGK chicane. Side by side contact between the pair of them. Descent spinning and Verstappen goes round both of them. Now where is Wojtek Dvorak? Because he's going to be closing into these guys. He was about 8 seconds behind. Never mind, he's only making his way into the NGK chicane now.
I love the fact that Christopher Verstappen is just like, okay, thanks very much for that.
Cheers,
Wojtek, yeah, that was the most predictable accident I think I've ever seen in ACC. The two of them just not giving in at all to that one. Apostle tried to go for a move that was never going to happen, went to the outside, got forced onto the gravel, kept the foot in, and just collected the Audi there. If you ask me, they both got what they were asking for. Verstappen is taking that and absolutely run away. But we're on our final lap, and the leader away to come round the final corner.
Andre Fender makes his way into the final hairpin, and it is going to be another win for the 89 of BS+ competition as Andre Fender takes the checkered flag. Luke Whitehead for GTWR, Yasit in P2, and Jaroslav Honzik will be able to bring his McLaren to the final step of the podium.
Brilliant race there. So there's your top three. Yeah, Grant Caracas though getting 4th position. Max Voigtner in 5th there. Felix Dapers getting disqualified from the race there, although that car was already in trouble about 15 laps ago there. Christopher Verstappen then is going to be the luckiest boy in all of the race today here, going to take that 6th position. Sebastian Apostle will finish, you would think, just ahead of Andre Michel if there's not any more afters there. Dvorak in 9th with Ben McConnell in 10th position. But my goodness me, I mean, Yousuf, obviously, you know, bringing you into the championship, what do you make of that race?
I think we had a lot of fun. It's a little bit of a shame that we saw the 39 having its moment, and as a result relinquishing the lead over to BS+ competition. Otherwise, I think we would have got a real scrap for the lead, but we still got some fun battles further down the field nonetheless.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Huge congratulations then to BS+ competition and Angus Fender extending the lead ahead of the number 75 Luke Whitehead there. What a race we had though. I mean, that is just absolutely impeccable. Again, like, driving standards for the most part were really good there. And yeah, Luke Whitehead in that Yaz Heat machine will be very happy to take that 2nd place with George Boothby. They worked really hard to get that, the 39 of Jaroslav Honzik in the Yaz Heat community car. Well, what do you say to that? That was an awesome race, and yeah, we have to say a huge congratulations to Angus Fender and Gregor Schilder taking the win for BS+ competition. And realistically, I mean, Yousuf, this is pretty much how it was in the championship standings.
Yeah, it's BS Plus Competition who extend their lead over Yassi GWTR. The Yassi community team allowing GWTR through. Luke Whitehead probably would have found a way through on Yaroslav Honzik anyway, but I think that's some needed points for the Yassi community team that have only had 2 races up until this point and are charging their way up the field, and who knows, maybe even a P3 at the end of the championship is possible if they can keep this form going.
Yeah, it certainly could be. But as we wait for our drivers to head in, Yousuf, you've got a little moment to think about all the questions that you're going to be asking our teams and drivers. In fact, you're not going to have that much time because we've already got our race winners, Angus Fender and Gregor Schill, ready to have a chat. So we'll get our production team to drag them into the room there, Yousuf, and I'll leave it in the capable hands of you.
Thank you very much, David. Angus, Gregor, congratulations on the win. Gregor, I want to go to you first because I want to talk about the mistake that happened into the NGK chicane, and then a few laps later, when the same mistake happened to your rivals. How easy was it to make a mistake into that particular chicane?
First of all, hello to everyone. But overall, I have to say, the problem with this mistake is that it's not happening consistently, you know? So like 9 out of 10 times you drive there around, you have no issues. And then 1 out of the 10 time, if you're unlucky, you go off like I did, and like the McLaren went off there. That's basically the issue. I think it's something to do on the one hand with the weight transfer, if you get perfectly right, but on the other hand with the collision detection, you know, because you go like 150 kph, and if you're just a bit unlucky there, it just, you know, it's like you're driving against the wall, the nose goes up and you are like a passenger.
Either way, fantastic pace, qualifying on pole. Towards the end of the stint, it seemed that David was bringing this up. It seemed that the BMWs just seemed to be a bit better on tyre wear than the McLarens.
Yeah, I think the BMW is a bit stronger in terms of tire wear, but it's basically equaling out at the end. You know, they were a bit quicker at the start of the race, you know, but then they had the bigger drop off, so it was like plus minus 0. But yeah, I was surprised to get the quali actually, the pole, because like the M4 is not really a quali car, so to say, and then to stand on pole, yeah, I was really happy about it, I have to say.
It was a phenomenal lap. To move on to your teammate Angus, you had a pretty impressive stint. You just seemed in complete control the entire way through.
Well, why, thank you. I mean, it's always nice when you take over a car that's been put in the best position possible. And in this regard, Gregor, as always, did a pretty damn exemplary job in this part of the race. I ended up with like a nice little pocket of space to just drive around in for my bit, basically. Yeah, out of all the races I've done in this season, I feel like this one's probably the one where I've driven the best. I was able to just do laps, didn't have any real pressure from behind, could just set my sight in front and just drive to my heart's extent, basically. And the car felt brilliant, and I managed the pace and the tyre wear. I feel like I managed it quite well, and it's brilliant bringing home another win, especially on a track where, again, we didn't think we'd have the outright fastest car.
Well, another congratulations to you guys on your win. I'm sure you're very happy that it was an uneventful race. But for us, I guess we're a little bit sad that we didn't get to see more of a battle. And it also means that I don't want to ask too many questions because otherwise David will have nothing left to ask. So David, I'll throw to you now.
First, again, as Yousuf was saying, hearty congratulations. Gregor, I'll come back to you first. Mount Panorama next time out. Thoughts and feelings ahead of what some call the Mountain of Doom?
Yeah, I have to say it's definitely not the easiest track to drive with, especially like as it gets closer and closer to the end of the championship. So you don't want to do, of course, risk too much. But I actually won't be driving the next race because I will drive the ERWC. So Arthur will sub for me in. So nice. It's really cool to have like such a high, you know, quality pool of drivers, which you just can, you know, then use in the championship. So yeah.
And of course, by Arthur, presumably, obviously, Arthur Camera. But
Yeah.
again, it's crazy to think that Arthur Kammerer is a driver that you can just pull out the back pocket and say, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't feel like doing this one, so here you go, here, have another superstar racing driver. Angus, coming to yourself, obviously BS Plus competition, I want to give our viewers a little bit of an insight into the work that goes on behind the scenes at BS Plus, because I know you guys are obviously incredibly active on social media, but there's a lot of support from the team as well, isn't there?
Yeah, Florian Asper, who set up the team a few years ago, is a fantastic man and a brilliant leader of the team. And he's built this infrastructure over years and years where we can have a wide diversity of different platforms we race on. So it started with iRacing, then came here, then we went into Rocket League, Gran Turismo, Trackmania. We cover so many different platforms now, and it's great to be a part of it all. It's a really friendly bunch of guys. Yeah, the team is second to none. I've just been in this team for over a year now. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. Was my first year after I signed, and it's been some of the best moments of my sim racing life in this. And yes, this team is something I thought I'd never really do. I mean, these guys I'm with are absolute quality, and it's a bit surreal to be amongst them.
Well, hearty congratulations once more, Gregor and Angus, for BS Plus competition. A very well-deserved win tonight, and we'll see you next time out at Mount Panorama.
Yeah, speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. See you then. Thanks for the stream.
So, Yousuf, we've got more interviews to do. We have got Luke Whitehead and George Boothby to have a little chat with us.
Yeah, our Yes Heat GWTR drivers are jumping on in. Congratulations to the pair of you on P2. I guess I'll just head straight in and talk about what were your expectations coming into this race? Are you happy with the P2, or is there a bit of disappointment that you weren't able to end up on the top step?
Obviously we wanted to try and get the win. That would be like, it'd be silly if we said that wasn't the objective. But we both drove as quick as we sort of could in that race, and it just wasn't quite enough, I'm afraid. Like, it is what it is. Maybe if we could rerun that race and change a few things, maybe we could put a bit more of a fight. Maybe the luck would swing in our favor a bit, but just wasn't the case tonight. So it's a bit of a shame for us, obviously, with the championship sort of getting further and further out of our grasp. But we're not going to give up. We're going to keep trying. We're going to see what we can do in the next few rounds. Obviously, Bathurst is one of the next rounds as well, so things could get a bit spicy there, as it usually does. So yeah, there's still plenty of points on the table. So we're gonna just try and maximize the other results. But yeah, it's just a shame today. We wanted to try and get the win, but we couldn't achieve it. So, but yeah, GG to Gregor and Angus. They drove that BMW socks off. So fair play to them.
Luke, to jump to you in your stint, it seemed towards the second half of your stint, I want to say, that you actually started to reel in Angus. Do you think if you had more time, you could have potentially closed into him, or do you think he was just maybe holding something back?
It's a tough one to really say, because obviously, I mean, I felt throughout my stint I was quicker. But the issue is when you come out the pit 6 seconds behind someone, especially around NURBs in cars that are so similar, it's just not going to be possible to catch, unfortunately. I think, we had the general pace. I think I think I had the general pace sort of on my side. But yeah, as I say, Angus did everything he needs to do, and Gregor drove really well. They both drove a good race, so yeah, it's just the same. It's kind of been the story of our championship, really. Just been a little bit behind them. Whether that be due to a glitch in the pits, or slight lack of pace. But yeah, I mean, they drove a good race, but we're not giving up. We've got plenty of races to go. I think Mazzano is a strong track for myself, but it's hard to kind of know, because every week we kind of go into it not really knowing where they're going to be and where we're going to be, but we're just going to give it our best shot and see where that takes us.
I do want to ask, slightly separate from the racing, and I don't know if this has been asked before, but Luke, where is the nickname Ripper coming from on your Discord name?
Hey, it's not come up in an interview before, so that's a new one for me. But Yeah, it comes from because I used to do real life racing. I did about 7, 8 years of real life racing, and it was just a nickname that I had named after the Monster Energy drink when I was really young. I think the story goes that I had a sip of it before a race, and when I was starting last, came through and won, and then they just said, "Oh, it was the Ripper." So then the name kind of stuck from there, and I've just kept it. I guess it's kind of stuck. It's been all on my race helmets. So yeah, just thought I'd keep it. The one thing that can remain.
So, but just to follow up on that, when was the last time you had a bit of Monster before a sim race?
I've never done it. Maybe I should try that. Maybe I should try that. But I mean, to be honest, I think I don't know. It might make stuff worse. I think as far as
Chug.
energy goes in the race, it's sketchy. I don't want to be.
Chug.
I don't. No, man. The only drink I'm going to be drinking is out of my boot, and that's if we win a championship. So I mean, you know, if Monster can give me a partnership and give me some drinks, then yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Fair enough. David, I'll throw it to you if you've got any questions for George.
Yeah, just hearty congratulations again, guys. A brilliant performance. We've asked about Mount Panorama, Mount Bathurst coming up next time round, but is there anything differently that you think that you could have done with the championship? I know that obviously Lady Luck, you were saying, hasn't been on your side, but what else can you possibly do?
Car
Uh,
choice. Car choice. I mean, for me anyway, I'm not massively comfortable with the McLaren. I think I hope obviously George sort of we spoke before the championship, and I think I mean I didn't know what car we were going until we sort of got within the first round. But I mean for me, I've just been learning the car, and I mean George has been George obviously knows the car really well. He's quick in everything, so it's good to have a teammate like that I can kind of learn off of. I mean Spa was probably the biggest evidence of me not knowing the car that well. So I think yeah, I think maybe if I knew the car better, I'd have been able to do a bit more from my side. But I think we've done all that we can so far. We just need to dig deeper in the final rounds and just see what happens. Hope they have a bad one, I think.
Well, listen, guys, again, hearty congratulations. Another sterling performance for Yassi and GTWR. And we can't wait to see you back on the podium, no doubt, next time.
Cheers, boys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Excellent stuff. Always great to hear from Yassi at GTWR. Can't believe we'd never actually asked that question about Ripper. I'd seen it in Discord, but I never thought to ask.
I'm just going to say, if the GWTR team absolutely destroys at Bathurst next time out,
then
it's because both the Luke Whitehead and George Boothby were chugging down Monster Energy drink before the race.
That's not my style, mate. That's maybe a vodka and energy drink. Yeah, then we're not even taking part in the race. We're just we're having a good time. But yeah, look, we'll see what happens. Anyway, let's move on because we're running out of time here. So last but certainly not least, let's bring in Mikhail Statsenko to have a little chat. And Yousuf, I mean, yeah, what a night we've had.
Yeah, Mikhail, you guys were pretty fast. I'll give you that. I spoke to the BS+ competition drivers and I asked them about the NGK chicaning incident. So I have to be fair and ask you the same question. Just how tricky was it out there on the Nürburgring tonight?
It was definitely like for McLaren. It's definitely one of the most trickiest track to be consistent on, because with the game meta now, we all run softer setups, and in a McLaren, it's such a high air car. You have to make it as low as possible to be fast all around the track. So you just have to sacrifice the chicane, and we definitely sacrificed too much, I think, because we got off maybe 4 times. So yeah, it was not easy for us in that chicane, and generally in bottom out situation. I don't know. You just have to sacrifice less, I guess.
Do you think if it wasn't for that mistake, do you think you and Yaroslav could have held BS+ behind you for the entire race?
Yeah, I think it could have been like a completely different race if Jadri would have came out in front of BS Plus, because he would have held them for a bit and Luke just could have caught him. Like, it would have been a different race. Yeah, it's such a shame.
David, I'll throw to you if you've got any more questions.
Yousuf, you've absolutely covered everything. Mikhail, just a hearty congratulations, and you'll be looking forward to the remaining races of the season. What do you think that position-wise you can get out of this championship?
Definitely, we can fight for P2, I think, because we missed the first round, so we'll try to fight between P2, P3, something like that.
It's not bad though. I mean, you did come in, as you just said, you came into the championship quite late, and you've already kind of got yourself established as one of the main contenders for that that second position. Was that always on the cards, or were you quite happily surprised by that?
No, I mean it's always there. Like, it's not too hard to get up to pace. I don't know what I'm talking about. Whatever. I mean, it was a weird question.
It usually is, unfortunately. You should be used to that from myself, Mikhail, by now. Goodness knows. But listen, thank you so much, and pass on our congratulations to your teammate as well. But thanks very much for coming and joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you a lot. Goodbye.
There we go, Yousuf. Another night, another round of the championship done and dusted. And I don't know about you, but that certainly took its toll on me.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I've not actually commentated on some racing in a while, so good to be back. Had a lot of fun with you, David, alongside talking about God knows what we were talking about at some points in the race, but I've absolutely loved our time. I hope you guys in the Twitch chat have enjoyed it. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the follow button on the Twitch channel so you can stay up to date when the next round of the GT Challenger Cup will be occurring, which will be at Mount Panorama. Big thanks to our partners at Moza Racing, SimracingGP, and of course, GTOmega Racing themselves as well. From myself and David Christie and our wonderful production team, we'll see you all next time. Stay fast and goodbye.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Show me what you got. Oh,
Is that everything you got?
last turn.
Catch me if you can.
That was great.
That was a good game.
Unlock true experience with GTOmega.
Unleash the racer in you and feel the thrill of racing all out on the open road.